Chapter 1. Ding! The sign-in system awakens. In order to keep the host alive, a newbie gift pack is distributed. Immunity. Quest released. Please sign in front of gods of destruction. Beerus. Reward. Prototype of the realm of freedom. Hiss. Ling Xian held his head. The severe pain made him want to smash his head open. It turns out that Ling Xian is not from this world. In his previous life, he drank cold water and his soul was inexplicably transported to this world. Ling Xian was helpless, but had to accept the fact of time travel. Fortunately, he traveled to this strange world and awakened a sign-in system. Listening to the electronic sound in his mind, Ling Xian was stunned. Gods of destruction. Beerus. Ling Xian's pupils shrank sharply and his whole body was shaking. System, is this the world I was thinking of? Reply to the host, yes. Hiss. Ling Xian took a deep breath. Isn't Gods of Destruction Beerus a character from Dragon Ball? Wouldn't that mean I've traveled to the Dragon Ball world? Ling Xian kept swallowing his saliva. If it was any other ordinary world, it would be fine. After all, no matter what happened, no one would die. But the Dragon Ball world is different. The Dragon Ball world is a world of high-level martial arts where planets and universes are destroyed at any time. As ordinary people, we have the least say in such situations. Ordinary people basically cannot escape from such a disaster and will only be buried with the planet universe. Can I survive in the Dragon Ball world? Ling Xian's face was full of bitterness. Why did he travel to this advanced martial arts world when there were so many other worlds he could travel to? Finished. Just when Ling Xian was about to despair, he suddenly saw something. Tail. He has a tail. I am Saiyan. Yes, host, the novice gift packs have begun to be distributed. Please pay attention to receive them. Before Ling Xian could feel ecstatic, his whole body suddenly convulsed and his face became hideous, as if he was in great pain. A moment later, a sacred aura burst out from Ling Xian. Boom! The breath swept across the entire planet and spread out. Arrive at the Supreme Kai world. Arrive at the realm of gods of destruction. Arrived at the 6th universe. Arrival at Xeno Palace. All the gods in the Dragon Ball world looked up suddenly, and each of them frowned. No one knew what they were thinking. At the same time, after Ling Xian received the novice gift package, he lay on the ground. The pain in his body made it feel like even breathing was being torn apart. System, am I dead? Replying to the host, you cannot die now unless your lifespan is exhausted. WH. What do you mean? The newbie gift pack is called Immunity, and as the name suggests, it means immunity to all negative effects. Speak clearly. This means that you can ignore any damage in the Dragon Ball world from now on. So that means I can ignore Son Goku's Kamehameha. Right. Can I ignore the destructive energy of the gods of destruction? Right. Can I ignore Zeno's erasure? Having said this, Ling Xian crawled on the ground, holding his breath, not daring to breathe. I was extremely nervous. Been waiting for a long time. Right. As the electronic sound in his mind rang, Ling Xian ignored the pain in his body, sat up, and laughed like a fool. I thought that after traveling here, he would become the same cannon fodder as those people on Earth. Who would have thought that God would be so kind to him? With immunity, who can hurt him now? Moreover, in addition to immunity, Ling Xian also discovered that he was a Saiyan. With immunity combined with Saiyan's physique, if it is cultivated to the extreme, I'm afraid that by then, punching Beerus and kicking Zeno will no longer be a fantasy. But, although Ling Xian has gained immunity and no one can hurt him anymore, he still has self-awareness. Ling Xian knew that he was just immune to all negative influences, but that didn't mean he could now despise the gods of destruction and other gods. Dragon Ball is originally a world of high-level martial arts. In addition to powerful martial arts, there are also various strange skills, such as Master Roshi's Meifaha. If Ling Xian really thinks he has immunity and acts recklessly, then he will definitely face a secret technique that is more powerful than the demon sealing wave. This secret technique only seals one person and does not have any negative impact on the person himself, so immunity is useless. Think these through. Ling Xian finally calmed down from his excited state and his body no longer hurt. Move your arms and legs and twist your neck. Ling Xian also sorted out the memories in his brain. It turns out that he is still on planet Vegeta. It is now the 736th year of the Age of Ages, and there is still 1 year left before planet Vegeta is destroyed by Frieza. He is only 6 years old now, still a little boy, and his name is Louis. Then he will be Louis from now on. Louis looked at his short legs and found it a little funny. He didn't expect that he would have to go through the childhood stage again. But the good news is that he is a senior Saiyan warrior with a combat power of 500 points. Louis knew that the division of upper, middle, and lower warriors was actually not quite correct, just like the protagonist Son Goku of the original work, who was ranked as a lower-level warrior at birth. But in the end, he still broke through his limits again and became the Super Saiyan known among the Saiyan clan. But having the status of a superior warrior is beneficial, at least in the early stages. With his status as a superior warrior, he can almost walk sideways on the Vegeta planet even though he is still a child. After all, in the entire Saiyan clan, senior warriors are very rare, and each senior warrior is extremely valuable. Knowing his own strength and status, Louis also remembered the tasks issued by the system. Sign in front of gods of destruction Beerus, reward, prototype of the realm of freedom. The realm of freedom. Seeing the reward, Louis felt dizzy. It's not fear, it's excitement. The state of freedom is an angel-level state, and even the gods of destruction find it difficult to comprehend it. In the anime, the only person who has reached this state is Son Goku. Son Goku, at the Tournament of Power, overwhelmed Jiren with his perfect Ultra Instinct state. In the end, if it weren't for Son Goku trying his best, Jiren would have been defeated. Louis was very excited now, but he couldn't help frowning. Sign in before Beerus. With his current combat power of 500 points, he is not even qualified to meet King Kai, let alone the supreme god of the 7th universe. System, is there a time limit for this task? No. Hearing this, Louis' brows relaxed slightly. It would be good if there was no time limit, this way he could wait until his strength grew enough before looking for Beerus. Suddenly a flash of light flashed through Ling Xian's mind, and he remembered something. It seems like I have a chance. Louis was ecstatic. Destroying planet Vegeta was not Frieza's idea alone. There is a secret behind this. In the original story, Beerus asked King Vegeta to find the best pillow in the world for him. As a result, King Vegeta kept the best pillow for himself and gave Beerus the second best pillow. As the most powerful god in the universe, Beerus was naturally angry when someone dared to deceive him. So before falling asleep, Beerus ordered Frieza to destroy the Saiyan clan. Louis thought about the present time again. Vegeta was the same age as him at that time, and the anime mentioned that Vegeta was also present when Beerus trampled King Vegeta. Vegeta at that time seemed to be the same age as now. Hiss! Louis gasped. Doesn't that mean Beerus is likely to come to planet Vegeta in the near future? In this way, the sign-in task can be completed. As Louis was in ecstasy, an aura of destruction enveloped the entire Vegeta planet. Here it comes. Chapter 2. Normally, ordinary people cannot detect the breath of gods, but Louis seemed to be able to detect this breath because of his immunity. Because the aura of the gods will naturally create a sense of oppression on mortals, this is the oppression of the superiors. This kind of oppression itself is a kind of negative impact. Speak of the devil and he will appear. If Louis guessed correctly, it should be the gods of destruction Beerus and his servants who came to planet Vegeta. After this day, the fate of planet Vegeta will change. The fate of Vegeta and Saiyan are all later stories. Now Louis just wants to meet Beerus. In this way, he can sign in successfully and get the prototype of the realm of freedom. The more Louis thought about it, the more excited he became. In order to complete the sign-in task, Louis walked out of the room and headed towards King Vegeta's palace. Along the way, the surrounding buildings were full of industrial atmosphere, and Louis soon arrived in front of a palace. The palace was huge, and the gate on the stairs was guarded by 2 Saiyans. Louis walked up. Louis, King Vegeta has ordered that no one is allowed to enter the palace. 2 guards stepped forward and said, I have something important to discuss with King Vegeta. Louis walked up the stairs and spoke in a childish voice. No, King Vegeta has ordered that no one is allowed to enter. I must go in. It concerns the fate of our Saiyan clan. Louis boasted with his eyes wide open. In fact, he was not interested in the evil Saiyan clan, but if he wanted to enter the palace, it seemed that this was the only excuse he could use. Because according to the detector, the strength of the 2 guards in front of him is 1,200 points. The opponents are all adult Saiyan, so it is not surprising that they have such high combat power. Louis only has 500 combat power points and is still a child, so it is impossible for him to force his way in. Louis spoke so seriously that the two guards were stunned. Is this true or false? In their eyes, Louis is just a child. What can he know about Saiyan's fate? But it is impossible for an ordinary Saiyan to make such a joke, not to mention that Louis is a senior warrior who has high hopes. Okay, I'll go and report it. Wait for me. One of the guards wanted to turn around and walk into the palace. This is urgent. I'll go in first and I'll explain things to King Vegeta. Louis walked directly in front of the guards. Let you go in and report, so I still have a chance to meet Beerus? Louis passed the guards and walked very quickly. Etc. The guard tried to stop it. Okay, he's a senior warrior, you can't afford to offend him, just ignore him. If there's any punishment, it's him, and I feel like what Louis said is true. Louis did not hear the conversation of the guards behind him. He was walking along the corridor and soon arrived inside the palace. Red carpet, lighting. The interior of the palace is gorgeous. King Vegeta, how dare you fool me? Lord Beerus, I don't have any. The pillow I gave you is the best. How dare you quibble? A cold voice spread throughout the entire palace, filled with murderous aura, causing the temperature in the palace to drop suddenly. A little boy in the corner trembled as he watched his father being trampled to the ground. King Vegeta, you disappoint me. Beerus stepped hard on King Vegeta's head, his brows suddenly frowned slightly and he looked up. Whis next to him also shifted his gaze to the palace gate, where a child appeared. The child blinked his round eyes and his tail kept shaking behind his butt. Louis? What are you doing here? Get out of here! King Vegeta was stepped on the ground, and he couldn't help but regret why he went against the will of the gods of destruction. Now Beerus must be very angry. Now Louis, the tribe's senior warrior, has appeared here. If Louis offends Beerus again, the Vegeta planet will be doomed. However, King Vegeta suddenly noticed that Beerus was motionless. At this moment, Beerus stared at the little figure at the door, his brows furrowed tighter and tighter. Very strange. Why does this little guy dare to look directly at me? Beerus glanced again at Vegeta in the corner, who was slumped over, shivering. Shouldn't that little guy be like King Vegeta's son? Whis was equally shocked. He saw through Louis' strength at a glance. How could such an extremely weak mortal ignore the oppression of his status? In fact, Angel has returned to its original state and will not cause personal oppression to mortals. But Gods of Destruction is different from Angel. Gods of Destruction cannot do what Angel does and will always unconsciously exude the oppressive feeling of being superior. When ordinary people see Gods of Destruction, they may collapse to the ground at best, or suffer from incontinence at worst. When Beerus and the other were confused. Bite. Successfully sign in front of Beerus, reward, the prototype of the realm of freedom. Buzz. The palace, which was originally filled with murderous aura, suddenly had an ethereal air and the sound of flowing springs, which completely dissipated the cold murderous aura. Boom. Seeing this, Beerus and Whis seemed to be struck by a divine thunderbolt. Their eyes widened, and they were shocked to the point of being soft on the inside and soft on the outside. Ultimate freedom. No, it's not the ultimate freedom. It's just the prototype of freedom, let alone the ultimate. But how could this little fellow comprehend such a realm? There are actually two realms of freedom and ultimate intention. One is called freedom, and the other is called ultimate intention. These two realms are very complex, but there is no doubt that they are not something that ordinary people can comprehend. Compared to Beerus, Whis is even more incredible. As an angel, he naturally knows how difficult it is to comprehend the state of freedom. But now this little guy inexplicably broke through to this realm, which is impossible to think about. Louis, get out of here now. At this time, King Vegeta took advantage of Louis's failure to provoke Beerus and told him to leave quickly. Shut up. If you keep talking, I'll destroy you. Beerus said coldly as he removed his foot from King Vegeta's head. He walked forward, Whis following closely. Chapter 3 Came to Louis. Beerus looked at Louis and said, Boy, did you just realize the state of freedom? Whis remained silent, but his mind was thinking about something else. Before they arrived at Vegeta Star, a sacred aura appeared in the universe. Could it be related to him? Big Cat, what did you say? I don't understand. Louis blinked his round eyes and shook his head. Big Cat? When King Vegeta, who was lying on the ground, heard this, his eyes turned black and he said it's over before he fell unconscious. Finally, I provoked Beerus. Really? Boom. A destructive aura burst out from Beerus, and the entire palace suddenly turned into starlight and dissipated into Sumeru. Beerus' eyes were blazing with fire. He tried his best to suppress the urge to kill Lewis, and gritted his teeth and said, "Do you know who you are facing?" "I don't know. I just know that you seem very strong, big cat," Lewis said naively. He showed the innocence of a child to the fullest. Although Lewis praised Beerus, in Lewis's mouth, Beerus is still a big cat. "I can tolerate my uncle, but I can't tolerate my aunt. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have comprehended the rudiments of the state of freedom. If you don't teach this little BDA lesson, do you really think that his title of Gods of Destruction is fake?" Buzz. The divine aura suddenly burst out, forming two giant hands in the void. One giant hand grabbed Lewis, and the other giant hand slapped Lewis' butt hard. Pa pa pa. There are actually two reasons why Beerus did not destroy Lewis immediately. First, he wanted to know why Lewis could ignore the oppression of the divine person. Also, why did this little guy suddenly realize the rudiments of the state of freedom? This is a state that even he has not realized. Second, it's not like he hasn't seen geniuses before. Frieza is a good example. Someone who has a combat power of over 100 million since birth can definitely be called a genius. But no matter how talented you are, in the eyes of gods, you are just a mortal and will never be able to show up on stage. But Lewis is different. This little guy has realized the realm of freedom at the angel level, which is far beyond the reach of ordinary people like Frieza. Beerus, as the gods of destruction, can destroy everything without any reaction, but when faced with such a genius, he still feels a sense of appreciation for his talent. Pa pa pa. The giant hand was still slapping Lewis' butt. After hundreds of slaps, Beerus felt that it was enough. It would be funny if he really beat the little guy to death. However, "Big cat, why did you hit me?" Lewis was caught in midair and said angrily. You, how come you're okay?" Beerus was stunned by the scene. He is the gods of destruction. In addition to suppressing Lewis in terms of status, he also slapped Lewis' buttocks hundreds of times. Although the power is not strong, it is still an attack from the gods of destruction. How can he withstand it, a weakling with only 500 points of combat power? "Why would anything happen to me?" Lewis snorted. Although he looked angry on the outside, he was actually very happy on the inside. Things turned out exactly as he had imagined. First, sign in front of Beerus, and you will definitely meet Beerus. Lewis can sense the existence of gods, and the gods can naturally discover his specialness, which refers to immunity. If Lewis didn't do something, there was a good chance he wouldn't be able to leave the palace. Of course, this doesn't mean that he will be destroyed on the spot. Lewis has immunity and no one can hurt him. But just because no one can hurt him doesn't mean no one can deal with him. Lewis knew that it would be very easy for gods like the gods of destruction to deal with him. For example, they could just imprison him and not give him food or water. With his mortal body, he will still die. Therefore, Lewis aroused the curiosity of Beerus by virtue of his own peculiarity. When the rewards for the prototype of the realm of freedom were distributed, it was another big surprise. This rare situation was surely something that no god could resist. That sacred aura erupted near the Vegeta planet. Could it be? Whis, who had been silent for a long time, suddenly widened his eyes as if he had thought of something. He leaned over to Beerus' ear and said something, which startled Beerus. When Lewis saw this, he was stunned. What happened? A moment later, Beerus and Whis turned their heads and stared closely at Lewis, who was caught in midair. Beerus said seriously, "Boy, are you interested in being a candidate for gods of destruction? What are the alternate gods of destruction? Can you eat them?" Candidate gods of destruction is nothing. Ba. Candidate gods of destruction is a priesthood. As long as you agree, you will be the most honorable person in the universe. That big cat, can he become stronger by becoming a candidate gods of destruction? We Saiyans want to become stronger the most. Lewis clenched his fists and snorted. Call me Big Kitty again. Beerus' mouth twitched slightly, but he still nodded, yes, as long as you agree, you will soon surpass King Vegeta. Then I agree. Lewis smiled innocently. He said so much, and thought that Beerus would only regard him as a genius. For the sake of the average human level index of the universe, Beerus would at most leave him alone. Who would have thought that there would be an unexpected gain, that Beerus actually wanted to recruit him as a candidate gods of destruction. Louis still underestimated the impact of the embryonic form of the realm of freedom on Beerus. Yes, it is really exaggerated that a little Saiyan can comprehend the realm of angel. Okay, okay, okay. Beerus laughed out loud and said good 3 times in a row. King Vegeta's anger towards his deception also dissipated at this moment. Little guy, I originally wanted to destroy your Saiyan clan, but for your sake, I will let you go. But the Saiyans are evil by nature. If we continue to leave them alone, it won't be a good thing for the 7th universe. Frieza alone is enough. At this time, Beerus looked at Vegeta who was slumped in the corner and said coldly, you seem to be the son of King Vegeta. I order you to let Saiyan join the Galactic Patrol. Little Vegeta was already trembling with fear. He didn't know the origin of Beerus, and it was only after this incident that King Vegeta told him everything about Beerus. It was then that he realized that the Saiyan clan had been to the gates of hell. Of course, this is all later. Now hearing what Beerus said, Vegeta quickly nodded his little head. When Louis heard this, he couldn't help but look at Beerus. It turns out that Saiyan was destroyed not just because of a small pillow. Saiyan is so evil. They followed Frieza and did all kinds of evil, even more evil than Frieza's army. The combination of this species and Frieza's army will definitely have a huge impact on the stability of the 7th universe. Now letting Saiyan join the Galactic Patrol is to restrict Frieza's power and also give Saiyan a chance to survive. Whis, let's go. Beerus held Louis in his hands and looked at Whis. Whis held the staff in his hand and lightly tapped it. With a swish, the 3 of them disappeared on the Vegeta planet. Vegeta in the corner got up from the ground and quickly ran to King Vegeta. After Beerus accepted Louis as the alternate gods of destruction, all parties were shocked. Xeno Palace. Grand Priest, what was that aura just now? Replying to Master Xeno, I am still investigating, but that sacred aura seems to be coming from the 7th universe. The 7th universe? Where's that skinny cat? Yes, I'll let Whis find out. Grand Priest is awesome, you need to check it out, I'm going to go play Star Destroying. The 6th universe. Vados, what's with that aura? Master Kompa, you'll have to ask your brother about this. Oh? Was it made by the skinny universe? The 4th universe. Kornik, check for me why this sacred aura appears in the 7th universe. Yes, Master Quitella. Chapter 4. All the universes had the same reaction. They didn't know what that sacred aura was, but they discovered that it came from the 7th universe. Immediately following, the 7th universe announced that the position of the 7th universe's candidate gods of destruction has been inherited by someone, and it is a little kid. Originally, the gods were still wondering about the origin of the sacred aura, but they were amused by the action of the 7th universe. The 6th universe gods of destruction Kompa directly mocked, is there no one in the 7th universe? They actually let a little brat be the candidate gods of destruction. The 4th universe gods of destruction Quitella also stood up and said that if it really didn't work out, he would give some people from the 4th universe to the 7th universe, so as to avoid letting a little brat inherit the candidate gods of destruction. It would be really laughable if this were made public. The reactions of the 11 gods of destruction were all the same. Not one person stood on Beerus' side. All of them mocked Beerus. But that's normal. Ever since the hide-and-seek incident, few people have a good impression of Beerus. Facing the ridicule from the gods of destruction, Beerus did not stand up to refute, which made the gods of destruction climax and they laughed even more happily. According to Beerus's personality, if he is ridiculed by others, he will definitely ridicule back, and it is not surprising that he will even cross the universe to fight the person involved in person. But now Beerus didn't react at all, so they must be right. The 7th universe began to decline, and Beerus could not find other strong people to inherit the position of candidate gods of destruction, so he could only find a little kid and start training him since childhood. All the gods of destruction were ecstatic. Little did he know that Beerus really had no time to pay attention to this group of gods of destruction because he was now frightened by Louis. The 7th universe gods of destruction. It has been a month since Beerus brought Louis back. At this moment, the little kid stood in the middle of the lake, shrouded in a layer of silver light. The gust of air made the surrounding sacred trees rustle. Beerus and Whis were standing next to him, with cold sweat on Beerus' forehead. Boy, are you in a comfortable state? Lord Beerus, what is the state of freedom? I don't know. Louis shook his little arms and pouted. Beerus was dumbfounded. He just asked Whis to use his childhood image to fight against Louis, but he didn't expect that Louis would crush it in just a few moves. How is this possible? He is the gods of destruction. He fought countless battles in his life, whether in his childhood or after becoming a god, he had never been defeated once at the same level. Moreover, the image summoned by Whis is a bit more powerful than Louis. Louis is the David and Goliath. The winner is still him, the gods of destruction. It's incredible. Whis, did I win? Louis turned his head and looked at Whis. Whis also wiped the sweat off his face and said with a smile, Louis, you win. Ha ha ha, Lord Beerus is no match for me. Louis put his hands on his hips and was in a good mood. In fact, he was able to defeat young Beerus thanks to the embryonic form of the state of freedom. It's not that immunity is useless, but immunity can only be regarded as a passive skill. He will not be harmed, but immunity will not allow him to hurt others. But the prototype of the state of freedom is different. When he entered this state, not only did his combat power increase significantly, he was also able to react as he pleased and naturally as he pleased. This reaction is very abnormal and can detect the opponent's attack method in advance. It's not about being able to predict the future, but about being able to sense the other person's muscle tremors through instinct and respond accordingly. In this state, let alone Beerus in his childhood, even if it was Beerus now, if Louis' strength was similar to his, he could still beat Beerus to the point of vomiting blood with the embryonic form of the realm of freedom. Louise put her hands on her waist and laughed, and Beerus had a black line on his forehead. You little brat, have you laughed enough? Ha ha ha. Believe it or not, I'll beat you up. Loyalu, Lord Beerus can't hurt me, I'm not afraid. Louis is a child now, and he shows his childish nature to the fullest, pouting his nose and sticking out his tongue at Beerus. You little brat. Beerus cursed with a smile. In the month since he brought Louis to the gods of destruction world, he already knew about the peculiarities of Louis' body. Able to ignore all negative influences in the world. He asked the little brat Louis what was going on, but Louis said he knew nothing. There was nothing Beerus could do if the little brat didn't say anything. Beerus glanced at Whis next to him and remembered what Whis said on Vegeta Star. That sacred aura seems to have erupted near the Vegeta planet. Louis's background is not simple. It was because of this that Beerus came up with the idea of recruiting Louis as a candidate for gods of destruction. There are two reasons for this. First, Louis is very special. If Louis does anything strange, as long as Louis stays by his side, he will be able to react immediately. Second, the other universe gods of destruction guessed correctly, the seventh universe really declined. Besides the low average human level. It is said that as far as Beerus knows, the strongest person in his seventh universe is actually that loser Frieza. What a failure! In such a huge universe, it turns out that a loser with a combat power of only 120 million becomes the strongest one. In fact, the strongest person in the seventh universe is not Frieza, and there are many hidden bosses that have not appeared. It's really late. Any boss you pick out is incomparable to any other universe. But Beerus didn't know all this. He just wanted a strong fighter to appear in his universe. And Louis was the man he chose. Louis is such a genius, plus he is very likely related to that divine aura from a month ago. If such a genius grows up smoothly, the seventh universe will be prosperous. Okay, Whis, you teach him well. I'm going to bed. Beerus looked at the funny Louis and couldn't help but want to beat the little guy up. But he couldn't hurt Louis, which was a headache. Whis asked, Lord Beerus, are you trying to avoid them? The divine aura that erupted near planet Vegeta must be known to all the gods in the Xeno universe. They will definitely come to investigate. You already know everything, why are you still telling it? Beerus yawned and disappeared directly to the lake. He didn't want to entertain those gods of destruction. Seeing Beerus Jean disappear, Whis walked over to Louis, patted his little shoulder, and said, Okay, Master Beerus is gone, and you're still laughing. Louis stopped laughing and realized that Beerus was really gone. Where is Lord Beerus? He was being lazy. Well, now that you have become a candidate for the gods of destruction, you must accept the training that belongs to the gods of destruction. Be lazy? Sleeping? It looks like the Dragon Ball plot is about to begin. Louis narrowed his eyes. The plot of Dragon Ball could be said to have started when Beerus ordered Frieza to exterminate the Saiyan clan. But, now the Saiyan clan is still a part of the world because of his influence, and planet Vegeta has not been destroyed, so will Son Goku still be sent to Earth. Chapter 5. Beerus fell into a deep sleep, and the mocking voices of other universes towards the 7th universe gradually died down. But angels from other universes contacted Whis and asked why the sacred aura appeared. Whis said he didn't know. In fact, Whis really didn't know the reason why the sacred aura appeared. Without getting an answer, the angels from other universes were helpless. Just when Whis thought that the matter was over, the projection of Grand Priest appeared in the 7th universe gods of destruction. The Grand Priest also asked about the origin of that sacred aura. When Whis faced his father, he still said he didn't know, but he told him everything about Lewis, including his immune physique. After Whis finished speaking, he realized something was wrong. The projected Grand Priest raised his hand and shouted to Lewis, who was practicing, "Erase." Lewis was hit by a white light, but nothing happened. Whis knew that Lewis could ignore all the negative influences in the world, but he was still shocked by this scene. Lewis' physique can really do this. At last, Grand Priest left a meaningful message: teach him well. After saying this, the Grand Priest's projection disappeared. Whis was shocked, but still obeyed the Grand Priest's orders. In the following time, Whis began to teach Lewis. To become a true candidate for gods of destruction, you need to work hard in 3 aspects: power, dimensions, and rules. The rules mentioned here are naturally about breaking the rules. Lewis has been practicing these 3 aspects. Time passed and 10 years went by. Gods of Destruction World. A silver light flickered in the sky. Bang! Bang! The Phantom and Whis collided with each other, and the resulting gusts of air swept across 100 miles. Wherever it passed, the ground cracked, the sacred trees were broken, and the whole place was in a mess. After the collision, ha ha, ha ha. A thin boy stopped in mid-air, gasping for breath. He has black hair, black pupils, handsome features, and a sunny and handsome appearance. He has a brown tail wrapped around his waist. His body shape is similar to that of the anime's Dato. He looks thin, but his muscles under his clothes are very well developed. Whis, take this. The young man was none other than Lewis. He raised his hand and a purple bead of rice condensed in his palm. Buzz! The sky suddenly boiled, as if a red-hot iron block fell into icy water. Good boy, when did you realize the power of destruction? Just a while ago, Whis, be careful. Lewis laughed and threw it with all his might. Destructive energy the size of rice beads streaked across the sky, and even the stable space of the gods of destruction world was shaking. Good to come. Whis smiled slightly, waved his staff, and the attacking purple rice bead suddenly disintegrated. Then Whis disappeared. Lewis, relying on the instinctive reaction of the embryonic state of freedom, looked up suddenly and saw a magic wand swinging towards him. Lewis raised his hand to block. But the power used by Whis was already at the angel level. The vast power shattered the entire sky. Transparent void fragments fell from it and then merged into the void, repairing the broken sky. The gods of destruction world also exploded at this moment, and only the palace where Beerus was sleeping was protected. Boom! Hit by the power of angel level, Lewis instantly turned into a cannonball and flew fiercely towards the deep space of the universe. I don't know how many planets were shattered. The next second, Lewis was teleported back by Whis. The world of gods of destruction destroyed by Whis was also restored to its original state in his time travel. Lewis hovered in the sky, looking at Whis on the ground, and said with a wry smile, Whis, you are so strong, I can't beat you at all. On the ground, Whis said with a frown on his face, Lewis, I can't beat you either. Even Grand Priest's erasure couldn't kill this kid, there was nothing he could do. This is outrageous. But Whis was quite comfortable playing against Lewis. Because he doesn't have to be as timid as he was when fighting Beerus. It doesn't matter if he uses all his strength, because Lewis won't die anyway. I don't know what's going on. Okay, don't be so naive. Come down. I have something to tell you. What's up? Lewis flew down from the sky and came in front of Whis. Since you have become a candidate for gods of destruction, you are also responsible for the destruction of the universe. But I have only just realized the destructive energy. Are you asking me to work so soon? Lewis was dumbfounded. It is illegal to employ minors to work. You are already a candidate for gods of destruction. Whis shook his head and smiled. Regarding the training, I have always told you to not forget to train in the dimensional realm while training in strength. You have done very well in this regard. In terms of dimension, you have reached the level of King Kai, and in terms of strength, measured by the combat power common to the 7th universe, you have also reached 1 billion. Although your power is still far from the power of a god, you have realized the state of freedom and have destructive energy. There are almost no people in the 7th universe who can defeat you. What is the current situation of the 7th universe? As you know, the average level of humans in the 7th universe is the lowest among the 12 universes. As the alternate gods of destruction, it is your responsibility to change all this. Besides, who caused you to have to deal with the lazy BD Beerus? If you don't take care of this matter, who will? Whis covered his mouth and laughed. Beerus is the strongest gods of destruction, but he is lazy. Louis' mouth twitched slightly, and he said, I was ignorant when I was a child. Can I regret being a substitute gods of destruction now? Whis raised the corner of his mouth and said jokingly, what do you think? Louis covered his eyes and smiled bitterly, it's my bad luck. Without Whis telling him, Louis naturally knew what the current situation of the 7th universe was. In the early stage, the strongest boss of the 7th universe is still Frieza. With a combat power of 120 million, he can be called the strongest. It has to be said that the 7th universe is really weak. The 7th universe was lucky enough not to be destroyed by Xeno. Ding, please sign in at the Supreme Kai World, reward, Super Saiyan 1. The system, which had been silent for 10 years, finally made some movement. When Louis heard this, he was immediately delighted. He knew the way to transform into a Super Saiyan, which was to use extreme anger to channel the power deep within his body. He also tried to transform, but he always fell short, which was very strange. However, the system has now released a mission, and the reward is Super Saiyan 1. Louis was very excited. According to the universe combat power measure, Louis' strength is 1 billion combat power, and this is just his normal strength. If he really transforms into Super Saiyan 1, his strength will increase 50 times. This means that Louis's combat power will exceed 50 billion. Whis saw Louis' silly grin and couldn't help but wonder, Louis, what are you laughing at? No, let's go and carry out the mission right away. However, let's go to the Supreme Kai World first. Why go to Supreme Kai World? Why do you care so much? Lord Beerus is not here. I am the gods of destruction. Listen to me. A stream of colorful light suddenly enveloped the two of them and soared into the sky. The starry sky of the universe is very gorgeous and magical. From north to south, stars are scattered in it, forming a beautiful and fantastic galaxy. A holy land in the galaxy, filled with a milky white aura, which, upon closer inspection, was emitted from a gigantic planet. The huge planet was grass-green in color, and was emitting rays of holy light. It was extremely sacred, as if it was a star region where gods lived. Supreme Kai World. What's going on? Supreme Kai Xian sat by the lake, holding his chest, and his mind suddenly became irritated. The servant beside him, Jebet, asked hurriedly, Master Supreme Kai, what's wrong with you? I don't know, I just suddenly had a bad feeling, this feeling. Could it be that Majin Buu broke the seal? Supreme Kai Xian's face changed, and he quickly stood up, ready to go and take a look at the place where Majin Buu was sealed. When Jupiter heard this, his face turned pale. If it was really the legendary Majin Buu who broke the seal, then the universe would be over. Right at this moment, a thick stream of colorful light fell from the sky. Ding, you have successfully signed into the Supreme Kai World, and will be rewarded with Super Saiyan 1. A warm current suddenly flowed through Louis' body, as if it had made up for the defects in his body. His body felt numb and very comfortable. Louis smiled slightly. So that's how it is. He hadn't been able to transform into a Super Saiyan through his own efforts before, not because he didn't have the talent. It's because the S cells in the body are not activated enough, so the transformation cannot be successful. Now the system's reward has made up for the S cells in his body, and he has finally mastered the Super Saiyan state. Louis was in a good mood and looked around. Whis, the environment here is better than the gods of destruction world, why don't we change places with Supreme Kai? Louis, Lord Beerus will be angry if he hears you say that. Be angry if you want to. He can't kill me anyway. Whis was speechless. This kid is so annoying. Why don't we lock him up and let him starve for 2 days while he's still young? Whis shook his head. He looked at the Supreme Kai World and counted on his fingers. He hadn't been here for at least tens of millions of years. I don't know what happened to the old Supreme Kai now. At this time, who are you to dare to trespass into the sacred world of Supreme Kai? By the lake, Jebet was startled by the sudden colorful light, and then he found that they were two strange men. The auras of the two were very ordinary, one was immortal, and the other's dimension seemed to have reached the level of a king of the realm. When Supreme Kai Xian saw the two people appear, the anxiety in his heart suddenly disappeared. It was caused by the two people in front of me, but who are they? Supreme Kai Shin, Jebet. Louis smiled slightly, looking at the two people by the lake, and recognized each other's identity. Supreme Kai Xian and Jebet came forward. Supreme Kai Xian hadn't spoken yet, but Jebet's eyes were very cold. Which realm king are you? Don't you know that it is a great sin to trespass in the Supreme Kai realm? I am the king of the world. Louis was stunned for a moment, then remembered that his own dimension was at the King Kai level. It's normal for the other party to think so. But Jebet's tone was annoying. Whis couldn't help but frown. Could it be that the person who spoke was the modern Supreme Kai? That's not right. So why doesn't the contemporary Supreme Kai have a creative rule? Instead, the little guy next to him has a strong creative rule. Louis said coldly, do you know who I am? Jepetel is really as arrogant as he is in the anime. If you don't know him, you would think he is the Supreme Kai. Chapter 6. Isn't it just a small Kai? Tell me, which Kai is it? How ignorant. Louis shook his head. I am ignorant. Jebet snorted coldly, if you enter the Supreme Kai world without the permission of the Supreme Kai, you must accept the corresponding punishment. Since you are the king of the Kai, you can be spared the death penalty, but you can't escape the living punishment. After saying this, Jebet raised his hand and was about to take action. Jebet, stop it. Supreme Kai Xian came to Louis and looked at Louis and Whis closely, always feeling that these two people were very unusual. Jebet is not a Supreme Kai, so he naturally cannot notice this. He said, Sir Supreme Kai, one of them is immortal and the other is a world king. How can they set foot in such a sacred Supreme Kai world? Okay, listen to me. Master Supreme Kai, you should listen to me. The Supreme Kai world is not for them to set foot in. They must be punished. Regardless, Jebet turned around and looked at Louis and the other man with a fierce look in his eyes. In his mind, the Supreme Kai world is the most sacred place and cannot be defiled by mortals. Whis finally understood, and looked at Jebet with a frown. After saying so much, it turns out that you are not the Supreme Kai. I almost thought you were the master of the Supreme Kai world. Louis stood aside with his arms folded, expressionless. You, shut up, I'm just a servant of Supreme Kai. Jebet was startled. After hearing what was said, he realized that his behavior seemed to have crossed the line. Actually, we can't blame Jebet for his behavior. The main reason was that Supreme Kai Xian was too young to inherit the position of Supreme Kai, and Supreme Kai Xian's character was relatively weak, so many things were handled by Jebet. Over time, he developed the character of Jebet. Sir Supreme Kai, please believe me, I really didn't. Jebet was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat and bent over 90 degrees towards Supreme Kai Xingong. Okay, I know you don't mean anything else. Supreme Kai Xian looked at Louis, as if he knew he was the one in charge. Who are you? What are you doing here? Without responding to Supreme Kai Xian's words, Louis kept staring at Jebet, and the cold murderous intent frightened Jebet. What do you want to do? Do you know that ignorance is actually a sin? After Louis finished speaking, he raised his hand, and a purple rice bead suddenly appeared on his index finger. The world of Supreme Kai suddenly lost its color, and the breath of destruction swept every corner. It was as if the god of death had arrived. You, how can you be so strong as a Kai king? Jebet panicked. Supreme Kai Xian was also frightened. He stood in front of Jebet and hurriedly said, Stop. A warm feeling passed through Jepetel's heart. Supreme Kai was saving him with his life. Seeing Supreme Kai Xian's move, Louis stopped his hand that was about to throw out the destructive energy. Trash, I'll let you go this time for the sake of Supreme Kai. Louis glanced at Jebet and said coldly. Whis on the side had a blank expression on his face. As long as Louis didn't attack Supreme Kai, he could just kill Jebet. Hello, Supreme Kai. My name is Louis, and I am the current candidate gods of destruction. Louis then saluted Supreme Kai Xian. Hello, Lord Supreme Kai. I am a servant of Lord Gods of Destruction. My name is Whis. Whis saluted respectfully. Whis and Louis' sudden actions startled Jebet and Supreme Kai Xian. Especially Jebetel, didn't the young Kai King want to kill him just now? Why did he suddenly salute Supreme Kai? That's right. That boy is King Kai. No matter how powerful he is, he still has to be respectful in front of Supreme Kai, the highest god in the universe. Supreme Kai Xian thought the same as Jebet, he thought so too. But what are these alternate gods of destruction? Axon, I know you are confused, you will know soon. After the ceremony, Louis called Supreme Kai's name directly. Asin? Supreme Kai Xian, Jebet and even Whis were stunned. How dare you address Supreme Kai by his name? Jebet instinctively wanted to scold, but seeing Louis' murderous eyes, he quickly shut up. But it's too late. Louis threw a punch, and the powerful force penetrated into the void. Jebet's chest felt tight and sank 5 centimeters. Jebet was thrown thousands of miles away by the residual impact force. Jebet! Supreme Kai Xian was horrified and wanted to fly over. Okay, he's not dead. Come with me. I know you have a lot of questions, but you'll know everything soon. Louis put away his fist. He had already given Supreme Kai Xian a lot of face. Are you okay? Supreme Kai Xian looked in the direction where Jebet disappeared, then looked at Louis and Whis. In fact, he was really confused. Who were these two people? Even before the two of them arrived, he felt uneasy. After arriving in the Supreme Kai world, he was shocked by the power that erupted from the young King Kai. The power of the young King Kai is even stronger than that of him, the Supreme Kai. Besides, the young King Kai also said that he was a candidate for gods of destruction, but what are the candidate gods of destruction? Supreme Kai Xian was extremely confused. Whis, let's go and unseal the old Supreme Kai first. Louis's purpose of coming here, in addition to completing the sign-in task, is to release the old Supreme Kai. Whis was right, he became the candidate gods of destruction, the 7th universe was closely related to him, and he had the responsibility to change the status quo of the 7th universe. And the old Supreme Kai is the key figure in changing the status quo. Louis soared into the air. However, a meaningful voice came from the ground. How do you know this? Whis was still wondering how Louis would explain all this to the ignorant Supreme Kai Xian. Unexpectedly, Louis directly told the story of the old Supreme Kai. Louis' body froze in mid-air, and he remembered that Whis had never spoken to him. Damn it! Let's go! Whis smiled slightly and looked at Louis meaningfully. It seemed that this kid's peculiarity was not only that he ignored all the negative influences in the world. Whis didn't ask Louis why he knew about the old Supreme Kai. Louis was relieved and he quickly flew to the center of the Supreme Kai world. According to the original work, the place where the old Supreme Kai was sealed is there. Louis and Whis flew in the sky, and Supreme Kai Xian finally chose to follow them. He was really curious about the identity of the alternate gods of destruction. As for Jebetel, the young King Kai said he was not dead, so he should not be lying to him. Supreme Kai World Center. There is a sparkling lake, and in the middle of the lake there is a stone tower. A sword was stuck in the stone tower, with only the hilt sticking out of the stone. What are you doing here? Supreme Kai Xian and Louis flew together. He looked sideways at the two men and felt that they were more and more unfathomable. Did you see that sword? Louis pointed at the sword on the stone tower above the lake. Whis didn't say anything, he just kept looking at Louis, he actually knew so much. That sword is called Supreme Kai. According to legend, if you pull out the sword, you will gain the most powerful power in the world. Supreme Kai Xian is the master of the Supreme Kai world, so he naturally knows the origin of the sword. At this point, he suddenly came to his senses and said, "Are you trying to spy on this sword? You want to gain the most powerful power in the world." Supreme Kai Xian flew to the side with a cautious look on his face, ready for a fight, but he felt helpless inside, wondering if he could beat the others. Louis and Whis had black lines on their faces as they tried to spy on the most powerful force in the world. How ignorant! Also, if they really are spying on the so-called strongest power, do you think you'll be fine if you just retreat a dozen meters? Louis didn't explain, he flew directly to the stone pillar and held the hilt of the sword with one hand. Stop! Supreme Kai Xian yelled. Louis continued to ignore it. He released a destructive aura and exerted a little force on his hands. Boom! The Supreme Kai sword was pulled up in an instant, and the stone pillar exploded, turning into pieces of rubble that fell into the huge lake, instantly causing huge waves. Gurgle. Supreme Kai Xian swallowed hard. It's not like all the Supreme Kais in history, including him, have tried to pull out the Supreme Kai sword, but no Supreme Kai has ever been able to do it. And this guy actually managed to pull out the Supreme Kai sword? It must be fake. Louis holds the Supreme Kai sword in his hand, and a faint aura of destruction comes from the sword. No wonder successive Supreme Kai have been unable to pull it out. It turns out that it was Beerus's doing. Completion. Supreme Kai was desperate. If the other party pulled out the Supreme Kai sword, he would definitely gain the most powerful power in the world. He only hoped that the other party was not an evil person. Otherwise the universe will be in danger. But after a while, there was no energy fluctuation on Louis' body. Supreme Kai Xian frowned. Could it be that the legend was false? It's better to be fake. In this way, no one will be able to overcome the so-called most powerful force, and that's when Supreme Kai Xian was rejoicing. Break it for me. Louis held the hilt of the sword with one hand and the tip of the sword with the other. His posture frightened Supreme Kai Shin. The young King Kai actually wanted to break the Supreme Kai sword. This is crazy. Supreme Kai Xian knew that the legend was false, but the other party wanted to break the Supreme Kai sword. How was that possible? But the next second, Supreme Kai Xian was stunned, as if he was struck by lightning, and stood in mid-air, only to see the Supreme Kai sword in Louis' hand break into two sections. Okay, Axon, come down. Louis landed at the lakeside with the broken sword in his hand, and Whis followed closely. Come down? My great sword is broken. This is the Supreme Kai sword that has been passed down for a long time. In the sky, Supreme Kai Xian looked at the broken sword in the hand of the young man by the lake. He sniffed and his eyes turned red. The Supreme Kai sword that has been passed down for so long was destroyed in his generation. He is a sinner. Supreme Kai Xian landed on the lake like a soulless puppet. The Supreme Kai sword was destroyed, but the young King Kai still let him come down. Does that mean he is not going to let him go and let him die? Supreme Kai Xian also accepted his fate. The main thing is that there is no way to refuse to accept your fate. You simply cannot win. The aura of destruction emanating from the opponent is so terrifying that it makes you suffocate. Louis and Whis have no idea what Supreme Kai Xian is thinking, otherwise they would definitely say, "Kid, you think too much." Louis said, "Old Supreme Kai, please come out." Chapter 7. Supreme Kai Xian was stunned when he heard this, "Old Supreme Kai?" As soon as Louis finished speaking, a cloud of smoke came out of the broken Supreme Kai sword. Ahem. Old man, I'm finally out. A wretched old man in Supreme Kai clothing appeared out of nowhere by the lake. He stretched his waist and enjoyed the taste of freedom. Who is this old man? How did he appear? Supreme Kai Xian was stunned. Old man. The old Supreme Kai yelled, "I am your ancestor." While cursing, the old Supreme Kai frowned and said, "I thought some junior released me, but I didn't expect the current Supreme Kai to be so weak." Ancestor. Supreme Kai Xian looked at the clothes on the old Supreme Kai and the Patara earrings hanging on his ears. The body shook violently. Could this old man be the former Supreme Kai? Yes, that must be the case, because when the young King Kai said to release the old Supreme Kai, he must be referring to this old man. Are you really my ancestor? Supreme Kai Xian was ecstatic, his two little fists clenched together. The old Supreme Kai took one look at the bean sprout and finally nodded. Old man, you must be very strong. Can you help me beat him? He just bullied me. Supreme Kai Xian felt that he had found a backer and pointed at Louis. Louis. Whis. Ouch. Supreme Kai Xian had just finished speaking when he felt a headache. He covered his head and squatted on the ground, yelling. Shut up, you don't even know who he is. You're such a failure as a Supreme Kai. The old Supreme Kai was so disappointed with Xian that he gave him a slap in the face. The old Supreme Kai turned his head, looked at Louis and Whis, and said, Mr. Whis, long time no see. Whis smiled and nodded, Old Supreme Kai, long time no see. The old Supreme Kai turned his gaze to Louis and said, this must be the current candidate gods of destruction. Yes, Lord Beerus found this little guy 10 years ago, and then he went into a deep sleep. I am bringing him out now to destroy the planet. Hello Old Supreme Kai. You can just call me Louis. Louis saluted respectfully. The old Supreme Kai looked Louis up and down and praised, the power in your body is very special, and you have also learned to break the rules. Very talented. Wait. Louis, what's with this ethereal aura you have? The old Supreme Kai thought of something and said in amazement, the ultimate freedom realm, hiss. From Whis, we learned that this boy was found by Beerus 10 years ago, which means that he was trained by Whis for 10 years at most. In just 10 years, he has mastered breaking the rules and angel skill Ultra Instinct. This talent is not just good, it's simply terrifying. Louis looked at the old Supreme Kai in shock. It was so scary that he could see through his true colors with just one glance. I don't think the other party can even see the system in his body. Host, please rest assured that this system is not something that people in the Dragon Ball world can see. An electronic sound suddenly rang in my mind. Louis finally breathed a sigh of relief. The old Supreme Kai really has a good eye, but Louis has not yet realized the ultimate freedom, but only the prototype of the freedom realm. Whis explained. The old Supreme Kai still swallowed in shock. Even if it was just a prototype, it was still terrifying. After all, this is a realm that even Beerus has not yet realized. The old Supreme Kai was immersed in a world of shock, while Supreme Kai Xin was confused. Didn't the young King Kai say that if he released the old Supreme Kai, he would know everything? Why did he become more confused the more he listened? Old Supreme Kai, many universes are now waiting to see our 7th universe being destroyed by Master Zeno. We will need your help next. Whis spoke again. Oh? Why? The old Supreme Kai was stunned, even Louis didn't know about this. Whis looked at the two men's expressions and told them what happened 10 years ago. When a divine aura erupted near the planet Vegeta, Beerus found Louis as a candidate for gods of destruction. It was nothing. But other universes were shocked to hear that the heir Beerus found was actually a weak little kid. Given Beerus' popularity, all the gods of destruction stood up and mocked him. Is there no one left in the 7th universe? They even chose a child as the candidate for gods of destruction, which is really laughable. The average human level index of the 7th universe was already at the bottom, and coupled with Beerus' bad decision this time, it put the 7th universe in a very passive situation. Because Xeno universe didn't just have 12 universes before, there were originally 18 universes. But because other universes did not develop very well, and some universes offended Xeno, now only 12 universes are left. If the development of the 7th universe continues to decline, it is very likely that it will be destroyed by Xeno. Holy breath! The average human level index continues to decline. I never thought that during the years I was sealed, the 7th universe would have fallen to this level. The old Supreme Kai just wanted to curse. It was all that Skinny Rib's fault. If he hadn't sealed himself, this kind of thing would never have happened under his management of the 7th universe. Old Supreme Kai, calm down. The situation in our universe is indeed not optimistic right now. But now that Louis is here, the 7th universe will be fine. Whis finally spoke again. Yes, we have Louis. With your talent, Louis, our 7th universe will rise again soon. Old Supreme Kai nodded. This was the first good news he heard after the seal was broken. Louis on the other side felt a little uncomfortable. Am I really that talented? How can it be bad? After 10 years of practice, he was able to break the rules and also comprehend the rudiments of the realm of freedom. Add to that special immunity, who else in the Xeno universe could be more gifted than Louis? Louis finally spoke up, Old Supreme Kai, the current generation of Supreme Kai still doesn't know anything, so I need you to teach him more. This is the key. After all, the Supreme Kai is no longer the old Supreme Kai, and the management of the universe requires the Supreme Kai. As everyone was talking, they started talking about themselves, and Supreme Kai Xin was stunned. Ah? Who said I don't know anything? I know everything. Humph, what do you know? The old Supreme Kai knocked Supreme Kai Xin hard on the head again and sighed, alas, this is all Beerus' fault. This bean sprout doesn't know anything, so it's not his fault. The old Supreme Kai brought up the matter of Majin Buu again. When Supreme Kai Xin heard about the past, his eyes became slightly red. It turned out that his ancestors knew about Majin Buu. Youngster, let me teach you from now on. Old Supreme Kai glanced at Supreme Kai Xin, and then glanced at Louis. Louis was the key figure at the moment. It makes me happy to think about the shocked expressions on the faces of the Supreme Kais from other universes when they see Louis. Old Supreme Kai, now that you are out, I will leave the Axon to you. I am going to destroy a batch of planets now. Lewis offered to leave. Destroy the planet? Supreme Kai Xian's eyes widened and he said angrily, why do you want to destroy the planet? No, if you destroy the planet at will, what's the difference between you and Majin Buu? Ouch! Supreme Kai Xian felt a pain on his head again. This was the third time he was beaten by the old Supreme Kai. Grandfather, why did you hit me? You know shit. The old Supreme Kai finally began to educate Axon about the Xeno Universe's priesthood. Lewis glanced at Whis. His mission in the Supreme Kai world was completed and it was time to leave. Whis understood Lewis's expression, then waved his staff, and colorful light enveloped the two of them and soared into the sky. Not long after Lewis and the other man left. What? Gods of destruction are the strongest in the entire universe. Gods of destruction is more powerful than Majin Buu. The position of gods of destruction is specifically responsible for destruction. Chapter 8. Lewis left the Supreme Kai world and began destroying planets over the next month. One after another, the barren planets disappeared in Lewis' hands, and Lewis became more and more adept at breaking the rules. Now the destructive energy he condensed has grown from the size of a rice bead to the size of a fist. In the starry sky of universe. Destroy. Lewis raised his hand, aimed at a planet in front of him that was in the primitive tribal era, and threw out destructive energy. Buzz! A purple light flashed by, and the planet turned into a stream of light and dissipated into the starry sky of the universe. The planet destroyed by Lewis was originally alive, but because it evolved in the wrong direction and did not develop towards intelligent human life, it was judged to be a useless planet. Whis looked at the young man in the universe starry sky, the smile on his face never disappeared. Lord Beerus has found a treasure. Whis, what are you talking about? Lewis turned his head. This planet was the 5608th useless planet he had destroyed. From this, we can see how irresponsible Beerus was. Nothing, by the way, you Scions cannot survive in the universe, you. Haha, it seems that because I ignore the negative effects, I can even survive in the universe now. You are really abnormal, kid. Normally, ordinary people can only survive in the universe if they have cultivated to the level of the great King Kai. But I didn't expect that you can survive in the universe with your special power in the King Kai dimension. Ha ha ha, it's okay. Lewis touched his head and said, Whis, my mission is almost complete, what else should I do now? Whis waved his staff and checked the unqualified planets. He found that they were almost destroyed. He said, it's true. But if we want to improve the average level of humanity in the universe, simply destroying planets won't help much. In the final analysis, there are too few strong people in the 7th universe. And we can't destroy too many planets, otherwise it will affect the development of the universe. Now it's Axon's turn to take action. The only way is to strike a balance between destruction and creation, and then rely on the universe itself to give birth to more powerful people. Hearing this, Lewis nodded. Whis, now that I have nothing to do, can I relax for a while? Okay, but where do you want to go? There was a hint of doubt in Whis' eyes. Lewis said, I want to go back to planet Vegeta to see how Saiyan is doing. Lewis has never had a good impression of those evil Saiyans. But I don't know why. Over the years, he couldn't help but wonder how Saiyan had developed. Coupled with Saiyan's fate being changed, he was even more curious about Saiyan's current development. Lewis, I'm sorry, but you may not be able to go back to planet Vegeta. Hey? Was planet Vegeta destroyed by Frieza? You actually knew this? Whis looked at Lewis meaningfully. Finished. Lewis swallowed and accidentally said the wrong thing again. Whis didn't ask any more questions. He glanced at Lewis and said, don't worry. Planet Vegeta did explode, but the Saiyans are not dead. Ah. Now Lewis was confused. Do you remember the order given by Lord Beerus to leave planet Vegeta? Remember, Lord Beerus allowed the Saiyan clan to join the Galactic Patrol. Just remember, King Vegeta didn't dare to disobey Lord Beerus' order, so King Vegeta led his entire clan to the Galactic Patrol headquarters. When Frieza saw King Vegeta's betrayal, he destroyed planet Vegeta. What? Lewis was instinctively anxious and asked quickly, so are all my Saiyans at the Galactic Patrol headquarters now? Yes. The Galactic Patrol headquarters is not simple, so Frieza didn't dare to invade there. Now the Saiyan clan is alive and well. Whis nodded, checked the information, and widened his eyes. I didn't expect that after 10 years, your Saiyan has developed quite well. There are actually more than a dozen Saiyan who have broken through to 100,000 combat power. 100,000 combat power? Louis frowned, thinking. Could it be that Saiyan's cells have awakened? That's why they have grown so much in 10 years. Whis, help me find a Saiyan named Kakarot and see where he is now. Louis' voice sounded anxious. Whis frowned, who was Kakarot? Soon. The Saiyan named Kakarot is now on a planet called Earth. He is now called Son Goku and is being trained by a man called Master Roshi. Went to Earth? And started training with Master Roshi? Louis pondered. I didn't expect Son Goku to go to Earth after all. Then according to the development of the timeline, Son Goku did receive guidance from Master Roshi at this time. If the Saiyans are not dead, will Vegeta invade the Earth? Will Son Goku transform into a Super Saiyan? Let's go to the Galactic Patrol headquarters. Since Son Goku has gone to Earth, the Earth is not currently affected too much by the butterfly effect, and Louis has no plans to disturb Son Goku's training so soon. After all, Son Goku's ability to make continuous breakthroughs in the future, in addition to his own talent and will, is also inseparable from the martial arts training he received when he was young on Earth. Okay. Whis didn't ask Louis the purpose of going to the Galactic Patrol headquarters. He took Louis and disappeared into the starry sky of the universe. The seventh universe is at the center of the northern galaxy. A huge planet floats in it, surrounded by a dozen small planets. The headquarters of the Galactic Patrol on a huge planet. In the mission hall, Jack sat on the sofa, watching the Saiyans coming in and out, and couldn't help but sigh. Who would have thought that the vicious Saiyan clan would actually join the Galactic Patrol headquarters? Is Saiyan scary? Sitting next to Jake was a woman with short golden hair and a well-proportioned figure. She exuded the aura of a mature woman. That must be scary. They originally followed Frieza, the Emperor of the Universe. Hearing this, the blonde couldn't help but shudder. When she was sailing with Jark's universe, she was almost captured by Frieza's forces. Fortunately, Jark's universe ship was advanced enough, so she was able to escape. Then why did these Saiyans suddenly join the Galactic Patrol? I don't know either. Jack frowned and said, but in the past 10 years, thanks to Saiyans joining, our workload as the Galactic Patrol has become much easier. How strange. The blonde woman held her chin and watched the Saiyans coming in and out of the mission hall. At this time, two figures walked in from the mission hall. They were none other than Louis and Whis. It's her. The moment Louis came in, he noticed the woman next to Jake, Thais. In the original novel, Thais is Bulma's sister and a novelist. She follows Jack into the universe in search of good novel material. I didn't expect to see her at the Galactic Patrol headquarters. Thais also noticed Louis's eyes and frowned slightly. Thais, what's wrong with you? That person is looking at me. Thais pointed at Louis. Jake quickly pressed her hand down and said in panic, do you want to die? Didn't you see the tail around his waist? Yes, Saiyan. Thais then noticed the tail around Louis' waist and quickly covered her mouth. But... It's over, it's over. Saiyan is walking over here. He must have heard what you just said. Jake wanted to cry but had no tears. Women are so annoying. As Louis got closer, the atmosphere in the hall became solemn. Jake and Thais held their breath, their palms were sweaty, they just prayed that the other party was not looking for trouble. Chapter 9. Miss, are you Dr. Brief's daughter? Louis came in front of Thais and smiled. Of course he recognized Thais, but he didn't say it to her face, otherwise Whis would look at him strangely again. Thais was stunned, and pointed at herself with a white finger, her eyes widened. You know my father. She looks so adorable when she's shocked. Louis touched his nose and said, I don't know him. Ah. Can you send a message to your father for me? Yes, yes. Thais breathed a sigh of relief. Wasn't the boy in front of her quite polite? Saiyan wasn't as scary as Jake said. Not scary? I wonder if Thais would still say it's not scary when she sees Louis destroying more than 5,000 planets. But Thais naturally didn't know this, so she asked cautiously, what message do you want me to convey? Have him build a 100X gravity chamber for Son Goku. Louis didn't plan to go to Earth so early, but when he saw Thais, the idea came to his mind. After all, in the early stages, Son Goku's strength increased too slowly. If he had a gravity room, Son Goku's strength would definitely improve by leaps and bounds. When he meets Son Goku, he might be able to have a good fight with the Dragon Ball protagonist. Ah? Okay, I'll tell my father. Thank you very much. Louis was about to turn around and leave when he suddenly thought of something. He looked at Taisai and said, if you are in danger, you can shout Whis and I will come back to save you. This is my thank you gift to you. In the original book, after Tais left the Earth, she lost contact with Bulma and the others. Louis guessed that Tais was most likely in danger and then something happened. Regardless of whether this guess would come true, it was a pity to let such a beautiful woman get into trouble like this. Ah! While Tais was stunned, Louis had already turned and left. Jack looked at Louis's back as he left and asked, Tais, do you know this Saiyan? I don't know him. Then how could he? Louis didn't hear what Jack and Tais said next. He and Whis came to the top floor of the Galactic Patrol headquarters. A big green octopus sat on an office chair, its tentacles sorting out task commissions. There was also a young boy in a Galactic Patrol costume standing nearby. Myers, those Saiyans are pretty well behaved. Galactic King, they will be fine. Oh? How do you know that so well? Them. Myers was about to speak when he suddenly sensed something and said, Galactic King, my brother is here. Oh, and the alternate gods of destruction is here too. What? The Galaxy King turned pale with fright and fell off his chair. As the King of the Galaxy, the giant octopus naturally knows a lot of secrets, and he also knows Mel's identity. Myers is an apprentice angel, so isn't Myers' brother a real angel? Also, the alternate gods of destruction is here too. Wrong. When did the 7th universe have alternate gods of destruction? When the King of Galaxy was confused. Here it comes. As soon as Myers finished speaking, 2 figures walked in from the door. Whis smiled and said, Myers, long time no see. Brother, long time no see. Myers nodded, then looked at Louis, this must be the candidate gods of destruction. Whis smiled and nodded. Hello, Myers. Louis greeted him. Before he came here, Whis had already told him about the special features of the Galactic Patrol headquarters. This particular one refers to Myers. Myers is his younger brother, and it is for this reason that Frieza did not dare to come to the Galactic Patrol headquarters to cause trouble for Saiyan. Greetings, Mr. Alternate Gods of Destruction. Mel's had been looking at Louis and discovered that this young man actually exuded an ethereal aura. Is it the state of freedom? Interesting, it seems that other universes wish to see the jokes of the 7th universe will probably be in vain. The King of the Galaxy walked forward and bowed respectfully to Louis and the other man. Jinga King, let King Vegeta come to see me. Yes. The Galactic King quickly went to call King Vegeta, regardless of Louis' purpose in looking for King Vegeta. After the Galaxy King left, Whis and Mel started talking to each other. Louis looked at Myers, who had the same light blue skin and silver hair as Whis. According to the original work, Myers will die in the Moro chapter and then be resurrected by the Grand Priest, but he will become immortal after resurrection. Mers, Angel is neutral. You cannot interfere too much in the affairs of the universe, nor can you use your full strength against mortals in the mortal world. Brother, bad guys should be locked up. That's why I joined the Galactic Patrol. Myers, you won't be a qualified angel like this. Whis touched Myers' head and said lightly. Myers lowered his head and remained silent. Louis listened to the conversation between the 2 brothers and found that Mel's personality was exactly the same as in the original book. Gentle in character, but full of justice. Myers' dream is to protect the universe he loves. At this time, a tall figure followed behind the Galaxy King and walked in from the door. Louis said calmly, King Vegeta, long time no see. Myers and Whis stopped talking and looked over. Louis? Weren't you accepted as a disciple by Lord Beerus? Why are you back? King Vegeta was ecstatic. When he woke up from his coma 10 years ago, Vegeta told him that Louis was accepted by the gods of destruction as a candidate gods of destruction. How is Saiyan? For the past 10 years, we Saiyans have been hunted by the Frieza Legion. Some of our people died in the early days. Now that our Saiyan combat power has inexplicably increased, the Frieza Legion has basically no impact on us. Where's Vegeta? Louis nodded while sitting in the chair and asked again. We joined the Galactic Patrol under the orders of Lord Beerus, but Frieza didn't know this and thought we betrayed him, so he has had people hunt us down. King Vegeta gritted his teeth and said, Vegeta, Nappa, and Raditz were hunted down and disappeared 10 years ago. There is still no news of them. Louis, you are the pride of us Saiyans. Our Vegeta planet was destroyed by Frieza. You must avenge us Saiyans. Disappeared? Louis was stunned. He really didn't expect this to happen. Glanced at Whis. Whis waved his staff, investigated, and then said, Vegeta and the other 3 are not dead, they are still fleeing from Frieza's army. King Vegeta was ecstatic, really? Then can Mr. Whis send my son back? Whis looked at Louis. Louis had never expected that Vegeta would be chased by Frieza. He shook his head, don't worry about him. If he dies in the pursuit of Frieza's army, it can only be blamed on his own lack of strength. As another main character of Dragon Ball, is it really that easy for Vegeta to die? Who knows, maybe Vegeta will flee to Earth. Who would have thought that Louis's casual guess would actually become a fact, but that's all in the past. Louis, Vegeta is one of your people, how can you be so cruel? King Vegeta became anxious. Louis looked at King Vegeta coldly and said, actually, I had no objection to Lord Beerus wanting to destroy the Saiyan clan. I also didn't expect that Lord Beerus would make this decision because of me. Since you have survived, don't bother me. Saiyans are evil by nature, and not every Saiyan will be like Son Goku and Vegeta, who will eventually survive as an Earthling. Louis is originally from this world, so he doesn't have much affection for these evil Saiyans. When Whis heard what Louis said, he was suddenly stunned. He thought that Louis came to the Galactic Patrol headquarters to lead his people back to seek revenge on Frieza. Who would have thought it would be like this? Then what was Louis's purpose in coming here? Whis couldn't help but look at Louis deeply. King Vegeta was silenced by Louis' words. As a Saiyan, Louis could actually say such words. His fellow tribesmen refused to help him, and the Emperor of Universe kept hunting down the Saiyans. As the leader of the Saiyans, he felt very aggrieved. Okay, if you don't help me, I'll find a way myself. King Vegeta clenched his fists, and as he left, his back looked very lonely. Chapter 10. Louis stood up from his chair and took a deep look at King Vegeta's back. Why did he feel that King Vegeta seemed to have changed? Was it an illusion? Louis, are you really not going to help your people? Survival of the fittest, this is the law of nature you told me. Louis said coldly. In fact, with his current power, he could easily defeat Frieza even without transforming into a Super Saiyan. But what is there in Saiyan that is worthy of his help? What's more, Frieza will be killed by the Dragon Ball protagonist later, so it's not his turn. Only. Louis was feeling a little irritated and confused, because he always felt that King Vegeta seemed to have changed after joining the Galactic Patrol. Oh wow Louis, you are very aware, you really are worthy of being the candidate for Master Beerus. Whis then looked at Myers and said seriously, then do you understand Angel's neutrality rules? Myers simply ignored Whis and, like King Vegeta, turned around and left without even looking back. Whis. After leaving the Galactic King's office, Louis took a walk around the Galactic Patrol headquarters. He was absent-minded the whole time, and only when he met Saiyan on the road would he focus and nod from time to time. Saiyan has indeed changed a lot, especially their combat power. Almost everyone's strength has broken through to over 8,000 combat power. 8,000 combat power, this is the combat power when Nappa invaded the Earth. Don't forget that this is only the early stage of the Dragon Ball plot. 8,000 combat power is already very strong. Is this really the awakening of Saiyan's S cells? How could this group of naturally evil Saiyans awaken their S cells? In the end, Louis and Whis left the Galactic Patrol headquarters. On the way back to the Gods of Destruction realm. You really don't intend to help your people? Whis noticed that Louis was a little distracted, and smiled while covering his mouth. What a joke! I said I won't help you, so I won't help you. Louis put his hand on Whis's shoulder and said unhappily. Whis chuckled, someone is really stubborn. He was so anxious before coming to the Galaxy headquarters. I thought he had some purpose. Who would have thought that his attention has always been on his people? Stop beating around the bush when you scold me. Louis thought for a moment and asked, Whis, help me investigate what happened after Saiyan joined the Galactic Patrol. Whis nodded, stopped in the universe starry sky, and then waved his staff. A moment later. After the Saiyan followed Lord Beerus' orders and joined the Galactic Patrol, they stopped invading other people's planets and began carrying out missions issued by the Silver Patrol. In these 10 years, Saiyan has carried out a total of 30,000 galactic missions and protected 3,605 races. Destroyed 4,083 universe pirate groups and killed a total of 103,000 silver criminals. Whis became more and more shocked as he spoke, and finally looked at Louis. Louis, you Saiyan seem to have changed. Has it changed? Louis frowned. Aren't Saiyans inherently evil? Wrong. In the original novel, Saiyan did not seem to be evil at first, but became evil after a civil strife. Louis thought of another person. Amos. Amos's story says that he and 5 kind-hearted friends broke out of a civil strife, and at the critical moment, he transformed into a Super Saiyan. This is where the legend of Super Saiyan begins. This is also the beginning of the legend of Super Saiyan God. Louis smiled and said, Whis, if Saiyan is in danger, please tell me. Louis, you didn't mean. I'm thinking about the 7th universe, right? Look at Saiyan now. After only 10 years, someone has broken through to over 100,000 combat power. If we give them more time to develop, wouldn't it be easy to raise the average level of humanity in the universe? Louis, you know what you said makes a lot of sense. Whis touched his chin, his eyes shining. Right, that's why I asked you to pay attention to Saiyan's safety. Otherwise, it would take a long time to breed a race with strong talents by relying on the universe. Louis raised his chin proudly. He said it as if it was true. Whis did not expose Louis, and smiled while covering his mouth. Lord Louis is right. I was overthinking it. He. Louis was very stubborn and snorted twice. Whis wanted to say something, but suddenly frowned. Louis, Miss Ties is in danger. What? Are we in danger so soon? Then hurry up and leave. Another starry sky of the universe. On a galactic patrol universe spaceship, 2 people looked anxious. Because there were 5 other spaceships following them. What should I do? What should I do? I didn't expect that as soon as I went out, I would be targeted by the people from Frieza's army. Taisai grabbed Jake's shoulders and shook him. Stop shaking, or I'll feel dizzy. Jack said hurriedly as he saw many stars floating in front of him. Taisai stopped shaking and said loudly, you said you were an elite galactic patrolman, but you couldn't even deal with those little karamis at the back. You're such a liar. Did I lie to you? Jake wanted to say something, but his face suddenly changed. It's over, the spaceship behind us is more advanced this time, we can't get rid of it, they are about to start attacking. Warning, warning. Strong energy fluctuations detected behind, please pay attention. The alarm continued to sound, and the piercing sound made Taisai panic. Could it be that she couldn't escape this time? No. She hasn't written a novel that's famous throughout the universe yet. Tais, do you remember what Saiyan said at the Galactic Patrol headquarters? Try it out, call Whis. Hearing this, Taisai's mind flashed back to previous memories. If you are in danger, just shout Whis and I will come to save you. This is my way of thanking you. Tais tried her best to save the situation and looked up and shouted, Whis. Buzz. The space outside the universe spacecraft began to fluctuate, and 2 figures emerged from it. Louis received Tais's call for help and immediately asked Whis to come over here. Fortunately, the distance is not very far, otherwise, with Whis's space travel, it might be too late. After all, the speed of space travel is still not as fast as instant transmission. It seems that I have to find a chance to learn this secret technique. Louis appears outside the universe spaceship. 5 electromagnetic shock waves came this way. He raised his hand and waved it, and the electromagnetic shock wave was immediately slapped aside. Then Louis grabbed the void. The 5 universe spaceships in front instantly condensed into a ball and turned into 5 pieces of scrap metal, and the people inside were crushed into meat paste. Inside the spaceship. After Tais shouted Whis loudly, she kept her eyes closed. In fact, Taisai no longer had any hope. After all, it was impossible for someone to come and save her just by shouting out her name. But after a while, the energy fluctuations behind disappear, the alarm is triggered, the all clear. Taisai was stunned and slowly opened her eyes. Jake pointed outside the spaceship and said excitedly, Tais, look outside. What's outside? When Taisai saw it, she was stunned. I saw 2 figures floating outside the universe spaceship, looking at me with smiles on their faces. These 2 people are none other than the Saiyan and his servants that the Galactic Patrol headquarters encountered. Hiss. Taisai gasped. It turned out that just by naming a person, someone would come to save her. Sudden. The two people disappeared outside the spaceship. Next second, two people appeared inside the spaceship. Louis smiled and said, I didn't expect you to be in danger so soon. It's you. You actually came to save me. Tais jumped onto Louis excitedly, and this time she was really scared. She thought she was dead. Louis' body stiffened. Taisai's figure was too good, curvy, soft, and fragrant. Can you please come down and talk? Her body fragrance penetrated into his nose, and Louis felt that a certain part of his body was awakening. If Taisai doesn't come down, he will make a fool of himself. Taisai seemed to sense something and quickly jumped down. She laughed and said, It's a good thing you came, otherwise I don't know what to do. After saying that, Taisai raised her white chin and glanced at Jake. It's as if to say, see, the problems that you, the elite galactic patrol, can't solve are solved by that ferocious Saiyan you mention. Cut. Jack snorted in annoyance. At this time, Louis smiled and said, Miss, the universe is too dangerous. After this time, shouldn't you go back to Earth? Why call me Miss? Just call me Tais. Tais' eyes became firm, and he continued, No, I will continue to sail in the universe until I write a novel that is famous in the universe. Louis. Whis. You are an ordinary earthling, but when you encounter danger, you dare to sail in the dangerous universe. Louis was silent for a moment, then said, Since you choose to continue sailing, I wish you good luck. After saying that, Louis prepared to leave with Whis. Etc. What's wrong? Louis was stunned and turned to look at Tais. Can you protect me? I'll give you money. My father has a lot of money. Tais' eyes blushed. She was very brave for her dream, but she was also afraid of danger. This handsome boy looks like a very nice person. And he is Saiyan. The fact that he just appeared out of nowhere to save people is enough to show that he is very strong. If she could let him protect herself, she wouldn't have to follow Jake, such a weakling. Tais, I'm sorry, I really don't have time. Louis shook his head. He is a candidate for Gods of Destruction and has to go back to the Gods of Destruction world to continue his training. Otherwise, with his current combat power of 1 billion, he will not be able to compete with the Dragon Ball boss when he comes out. No, Jack is so weak, he can't protect me at all, you. Hearing what Taisai said, Jake next to her couldn't help but roll his eyes and said, Sister, I'm still here. You can just call me Louis. You're still stronger, Louis. Those people from Frieza's army are no match for me. Louis, you're the best, please. Taisai blinked her big eyes and said playfully. After being flattered, Louis couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth slightly. He had to say that Taisai's flattery was really great. Whis saw this and sneered. Oh. Man. Chapter 11. Louis felt very comfortable in his heart. He raised his head and hummed, Stop, stop, stop. Although what you said is true, I am indeed very good, but... Louis, you're the best, you won't reject me. A series of sugar-coated bullets came, and Louis fell silent. The spaceship was very quiet. He looked at Taisai and suddenly asked, Can you cook? Cook? Taisai was stunned. Didn't he say he was protecting her? But... Taisai still nodded, I will. As the daughter of the richest man on Earth, she originally couldn't cook. But she followed Jack to the universe outside the Earth alone, and after years of wandering, she had already learned how to cook. I can protect you, but you have to cook for me, can you agree? Louis said. He also wanted to reject Taisai, but this beautiful big sister said he was so great and awesome. Who can stand it? Plus, Louis can't cook, and Whis's food is terrible. If Taisai can cook for him, it's not impossible to protect her. Okay, let's put it this way. Taisai turned around and said with a smile, Jack, I have Louis to protect me, we will see each other later. Let's go. Women are so annoying. They only know how to burn bridges after crossing them. Jake was speechless. Whis, let's go back to the Gods of Destruction realm. Louis looked at Whis. Wait, Louis, are you going to take her to the Gods of Destruction realm? Whis finally spoke. Any questions? That's fine with me. Whis shook his head, but if Lord Beerus wakes up, he might get angry when he sees a stranger appear in the world of gods of destruction. Louis said angrily, "Why do you care about that lazy guy? He is sleeping. I am the gods of destruction, you listen to me." The corner of Wis's mouth twitched slightly, but Louis was right, when Beerus was not around, he had to listen to Louis. Besides, Master Beerus won't necessarily be angry when he wakes up. Louis looked at Tais again. Taisai has short golden hair, which is very cute and beautiful, but she would look better if she had long hair. "Oh? Why are you so sure that Lord Beerus won't be angry when he wakes up?" Wis asked puzzledly. "Will you be angry if there is something delicious?" Louis turned his head and looked over. "Delicious?" Wis' eyes lit up immediately and he said, "I agree to protect Tais." "Louis." Taisai hesitated to speak. Louis smiled and said, "Just tell me what you have to say." Tais swallowed and said, What are these gods of destruction and alternate gods of destruction? Are they some kind of gods?" Louis and Wis looked at each other and both laughed. "You'll know later, let's go." Louis grabbed Tais' wrist and glanced at Wis, who immediately waved his staff and the three of them disappeared into the universe spaceship. Only Jake was left in the messy spaceship. Gods of Destruction World. Because of the long-term influence of the aura of destruction, the land in the Gods of Destruction World is purple. In front of a lake. With a swish sound, 3 figures appeared. "Hey, I've been out for a month and I'm finally back." Louis walked to the lake and lay down on the lounge chair next to it. Wis contacted the old Supreme Kai and told him that Louis had completed the mission. The old Supreme Kai in the Supreme Kai world was extremely excited when he heard that Louis destroyed more than 5,000 useless planets. If Beerus were to take on these 5,000 planets, it would take him at least 1,000 years to complete the task. The old Supreme Kai felt that Beerus's decision to recruit Louis as the alternate gods of destruction was an absolutely correct one. This way. Wow, this planet is so beautiful. This is Tai's first time to visit the world of gods of destruction. She's wandering around here and there like a curious cat. It's strange to see something strange. Louis took a sip of the drink next to him, and suddenly remembered something, and asked, "Taisi, is there any instant noodles in your universal capsule?" "Instant noodles?" Taisai returned to Louis and frowned, "Yes? You want to eat? It's good to have it. Don't wait until Lord Beerus suddenly wakes up and sees you here. That would be bad." "Who is Lord Beerus you are talking about?" Taisai threw out a universal capsule, and the universal capsule turned into a warehouse more than 10 meters high, filled with dry food. Puff. When Louis saw this, he sprayed out the drink in his mouth, wiped his mouth and said, "You are fleeing from famine. You are the one fleeing from the famine. I am sailing in the universe, so I must be fully prepared." Taisai snorted. The universal capsule she took out was just one of thousands of universal capsules. If she took out all of them, Louis would have a heart attack. "Hey, what are you doing?" After Wis contacted the old Supreme Kai, he returned here and saw the warehouse next to Taisai, and couldn't help but feel confused. "Didn't you say you wanted something delicious?" Louis walked into the warehouse and took out 3 buckets of instant noodles. "Wis, boil water." "Ah? Okay. Okay." Wis waved his staff and a pot of boiling water suddenly appeared out of thin air. He picked up one of the unopened buckets of instant noodles on the table. I looked at it carefully and smelled it again. "Can this be delicious?" "Tais, help Wis." "Good." Taisai opened the plastic packaging of the instant noodles. Only then did Wis realize the trick. It turned out that he had to open the outer packaging first. Wis showed a surprised expression from time to time. He was like a country bumpkin. Louis ignored him. Wis would continue to be shocked later. Soon, Louis and Taisai poured the boiling water, and the instant noodles were ready to eat after just 1 or 2 minutes. Louis looked at the instant noodles on the table and couldn't help but think of the instant noodles in his previous life. He really missed them. "Louis, you and Wis were talking about the gods of destruction and the alternate gods of destruction. What are these?" Tais sat on the bench next to the table and asked about the topic again. "Gods of destruction are gods of destruction. But the gods of destruction are the gods who are in charge of the destruction of the universe, and they are also the highest gods in the entire universe dimension." Louis' voice was very soft, but when Tais heard it, it immediately caused a huge wave of emotion in her heart. Are you telling the truth? Really? Why would I lie to you?" Gurgle. Taisai swallowed her saliva. Through Louis' previous conversation with Wis, she seemed to have discovered the secret and said nervously, "Louis, are you the candidate gods of destruction? Is that Lord Beerus the gods of destruction?" Louis turned his head, looked at Taisa's fair little face, and smiled, "You are worthy of being a novelist. You have inferred this information just through my conversation with Whis. Yes, you are right. I am the candidate gods of destruction, and the real gods of destruction is still sleeping." Louis knew that it would be difficult for Tais to believe his words, so he raised his hand and threw a destructive energy at a mountain in the distance. Buzz! The mountain that was 10,000 meters high suddenly disappeared. Taisai's face turned pale and she was so frightened that she didn't dare to speak. "Ha ha ha, aren't you very brave? You dare to sail in the universe alone. Candidate gods of destruction, you won't kill me, will you?" Taisai hugged her shoulders and hid far away. From her nervous eyes, it could be seen that she was really scared. "Okay, come here. If I wanted to kill you, why would I bring you here? And I said I would protect you, so I will definitely protect you." Louis said this with a chuckle, "But you have to say something nice." Taisai breathed a sigh of relief. A large mountain range evaporated in an instant. This candidate gods of destruction was too terrifying. Fortunately, the other party had no intention of killing. "Well, Mr. Candidate Gods of Destruction, you are awesome, you are so handsome, just like the stars in the sky, no matter where." Taisai returned to her chair and said flatteringly, but before she finished, Louis and Whis instantly got goosebumps. "Stop, stop, stop. Stop talking. Just talk to me normally," Louis said unhappily. At this time, Whis ignored Taisai, looked at the instant noodles on the table, and swallowed his saliva. "Louis, do you smell it? It smells so good." Louis looked at the time. "It's time enough, we can eat." As soon as the words fell, a shadow flashed through the air, and one of the buckets of instant noodles on the table disappeared in an instant. Slurp! Whis couldn't wait to take a bite of instant noodles. "Oh, what kind of delicacy is this? It's so delicious." Slurp! Every noodle is wrapped in soup. When you eat it, the rich aroma bursts out instantly and rushes straight into your soul. Gurgle! This noodle soup is even more amazing. It must be made by boiling countless precious ingredients to make that small packet of seasoning. When you drink the noodle soup, it slides down your throat into your stomach. Whis didn't eat a single bite of the instant noodles. Every time he drank a sip of the noodle soup, he was expressing his views on food. His ruddy expression was like he had an OM, "Louis, are these additives really that delicious?" Tais was stunned. "Some people just like additives. We can't control that. Come on, let's eat it too." Louis' mouth twitched slightly. He picked up a bucket of instant noodles and handed it to Taisai, then picked up another bucket of instant noodles for himself. Just about to eat. Boom! In the distance, a deafening explosion sounded from the Palace of Gods of Destruction. Chapter 12. Taisai, who was eating instant noodles, was startled. What happened? Whis sped up and finished the whole bucket of instant noodles in a few seconds, not even a drop of noodle soup was left. Next second. "Ah! Whis, you've been secretly eating good food behind my back again, haven't you?" A purple figure flashed across the void. Beerus, wearing pajamas, flew directly from the Palace of Gods of Destruction to the lake. "Taisai, eat quickly." Louis' scalp was tingling. Who could have thought that this instant noodle had such a powerful power that it could actually wake up the sleeping Beerus? He quickly pushed Taisai away, saying, "If you don't eat now, there will be nothing to eat later." Taisai was stunned. What happened? But she still listened to Louis and quickly ate the instant noodles in her hand. When Beerus arrived here, he had already discovered that the mouth-watering delicacy was the instant noodles in the hands of the three people, and Whis had already finished the instant noodles. Only the young man and a woman holding instant noodles were left. But the boy pushed the woman, and the two of them started eating instant noodles. Beerus swallowed, taking in the enticing smell. He really wanted to eat instant noodles, but he couldn't swallow them because he had seen others eat them. "Who are you, kid? Do you want to die?" There was no good food left to eat, and Beerus was so angry that his chest heaved up and down, his whole body was glowing purple, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. He did not immediately recognize that Louis was the Louis he had brought back 10 years ago. That's right. Boys change a lot when they grow up. Beerus had been sleeping for 10 years, and Louis had grown from a child to a handsome teenager, so he couldn't recognize him at all. Louis ignored Beerus and continued eating instant noodles. It turns out that the instant noodles in the Dragon Ball world were much more delicious than the instant noodles in his previous life. Taisai felt the destructive aura emanating from Beerus and was almost unable to breathe. This should be the gods of destruction mentioned by Louis. So scary. I'm dying, help me. At this time, Louis stood in front of Taisai with instant noodles in his hand. The terrifying pressure suddenly disappeared, and Taisai gasped for breath. Finally survived. Louis said calmly, Lord Beerus, she is mine. Whis finished his instant noodles, a smile appeared on his face, and he watched the show on the side. Beerus clenched his fists, without even glancing at Tais, he looked at Louis and said coldly, You are a rubbish king, how dare you steal food from my territory? Who gave you the courage? Steal something? This lazy guy hasn't recognized him yet. Louis's forehead was crossed with 2 black lines. Also, how can something in someone else's hand be yours? You might as well just say that everything in the 7th universe is yours. Forehead. It seems there is nothing wrong with saying this. Then let's fight. Louis laughed, threw the instant noodles in his hand into the lake, and disappeared in an instant. Seeing the delicious food wasted, Beerus was furious. You want to die, then I will grant you your wish. Boom. His whole body was shrouded in an aura of destruction, and wisps of purple lightning danced around him, attracting mysterious thunder from heaven and earth, and the light waves were extremely terrifying. Crash. Beerus also disappeared, and Taisai was trembling with fear. Is this the so-called gods of destruction? Whis waved his staff to protect Taisai, otherwise the aftermath of the fight between Beerus and the other person would kill Taisai, which would be funny. Sky. Swish. Swish. 2 figures were flying quickly. Boy, haven't you eaten? You're so slow. Beerus suddenly appeared behind Louis and said coldly. Didn't you see whether I had eaten or not just now? Court death. Beerus was really angry and didn't hold back at all. He gathered a basketball-sized destructive energy and smashed it onto Louis, quickly enveloping him. Destructive energy will essentially destroy an object when it touches it. Beerus' attack is so terrifying that even if it touches the air, it makes a sizzling sound. Bah! You dare to snatch food from me? You're going to die now. Beerus turned back confidently, destroying the other party, and felt better. However, Lord Beerus, it is rude not to return the favor. You should take my blow as well. There was a laugh from behind. What? Beerus' pupils shrank sharply and he turned back quickly, only to see a fist-sized destructive energy coming towards him. Ouch! 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 Beerus was hit by destructive energy, and the tingling sensation was unbelievable to him. That kid actually survived his attack, and the other party could also destroy energy? It must be fake. Sudden. A small figure flashed through Beerus' mind, and then an ethereal breath appeared in the sky, like the smell of nature. When I looked at Louis again, there was a silver glow all over Louis. The prototype of the state of freedom. This also confirmed Beerus's guess. Beerus smiled and said, Good boy, I didn't expect you to grow so big. The only people who can ignore the attack of the strongest gods of destruction in Xeno universe, apart from the gods above angel level, are the heirs he adopted back then. Ha ha ha, Lord Beerus finally recognized me. Louis laughed and said, But you wanted to beat me up just now, and now I'm going to beat you back. As soon as the words fell, Louis's figure flickered and danced in the sky. Beerus took a defensive posture. After all, the opponent was none other than the extremely special little guy from the past. It would be funny if you accidentally capsized in a ditch. Soon, a large number of destructive energy bombs fell from the sky like flowers from heaven, and Beerus in midair smashed one with one punch. Seeing that his prince tactics were not working, Louis changed his attack method. Countless shadows appeared in the sky, and each shadow roared at Beerus like a prehistoric beast. Bang bang bang! Beerus would naturally not be fooled by the phantom and found Louis' true self. The two of them were fighting in tight physical combat. One silver light and one purple light shot up into the sky, like 2 dragons emerging from the water, entangled and separated. Hit from the sky to the ground. Every collision will produce a terrifying aftermath. An overwhelming aura permeated the entire gods of destruction world, and the gods of destruction world began to disintegrate. Taisai, who was protected by Whis, could not see the details of the fight between the two, but she knew it must be a very fierce battle. Whis, will Lewis be okay? Tai clenched her fists, her palms were sweaty from nervousness. Whis smiled, it'll be fine. Lord Beerus is very strong, but he can't hurt Lewis. Not to mention Beerus, even I can't do any harm to Lewis. Of course, Whis didn't say this, he just kept watching the two fighting. Don't be fooled by the amazing battle scenes. In fact, these images were not created by Lewis, but were all created by Beerus with all his strength. Because Beerus knew that even if he used all his strength, Lewis would not die. Lewis is still too weak. His power was like that of an ant in front of Beerus, and had no effect on Beerus at all. Even after entering the prototype state of freedom, he was still crushed by Beerus. Suddenly, Whis looked up at the sky with wide eyes. Something was changing in Lewis above. I saw the aura on Lewis' body turned golden, and a voice came from the sky. Master Beerus, watch the next transformation. Chapter 13. Ah! In the sky, Lewis clenched his fists, and the silver light on his body disappeared, replaced by a golden light. Veins were exposed on Lewis' forehead, and his roars were getting louder and louder. Boom! Mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. A golden light shot up into the sky. And Lewis' hair instantly turned golden. Super Saiyan. The combat power also increased from 1 billion to 50 billion. Good boy, what kind of transformation is this? Haha, haha. Lewis flew in the air, gasping for air, and said, this is a special transformation of our Saiyan clan, called Super Saiyan. Super Saiyan. Beerus suddenly remembered a scene in his dream. It seemed that he would meet a very strong opponent in the future, named Super Saiyan God. But Beerus looked at Lewis and frowned, boy, is this your greatest power? Yes. Even though Lewis' strength increased 50 times, it was still not enough. In the Super Anime, 100 billion combat power should be about the same as Son Goku's combat power when he first encountered Beerus on King Kai's planet. Son Goku challenged Beerus, but was crushed to the ground by Beerus with just one finger. In Beerus' opinion, Lewis is still too weak now. Lewis, in just 10 years, you have broken through to the realm of the king, your strength has also been greatly improved, and you have the prototype of the realm of freedom. Your talent is really strong, but you are still too weak now. You should practice for a few more years, forget it now. Beerus shook his head and suggested not to continue fighting, because if he continued to fight, his gods of destruction world would be completely collapsed. At this time, magma was spewing everywhere in the gods of destruction world, and the pungent smell of sulfur filled the entire gods of destruction world. The scene looked like the end of the world. In a little while, 2 minutes would pass, and Whis would not be able to restore the gods of destruction world to its original state. Lord Beerus, take my last punch. Lewis fought against Beerus and felt very frustrated because he was always getting beaten. Now that he was transforming for the first time, he had to feel the power of the strongest gods of destruction in Xeno universe no matter what. Come on then. Beerus had his hands behind his back, his face very serious. Whis, Lewis he. Don't worry, it'll be fine. On the ground, Whis protected ties from being harmed by the external magma. In the sky, Lewis clenched his fist, a golden aura covered his fist, and the surrounding space was trembling slightly. Infuse strength. The power of 50 billion is concentrated in the fist. Be careful. Lewis moves. A streak of golden light flashed across the sky, whizzing towards Beerus. Beerus had a blank expression on his face. He raised his index finger and lightly pointed it forward. Boom! A blinding light flashed where the fist and index finger collided, and a powerful collision sound resounded throughout the entire gods of destruction world. The magma on the ground is like the sea, with thousands of waves rolled up by the powerful force. One side of the gods of destruction world is collapsing, and the speed of disintegration is getting faster and faster. Under the recoil force, Lewis in midair slid backwards for tens of thousands of kilometers. At this time, his upper body was naked, and the gods of destruction costume could not withstand the attack of the strongest gods of destruction and exploded. The reason why Lewis was not injured was naturally due to the effect of immunity. Too strong. Lewis swallowed his saliva, and then he realized that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't move Beerus at all. Soon, the gods of destruction world was restored to its original state after Whis reversed time. When Tais saw this shocking time travel, she couldn't help but look at Whis. It seemed that Whis was even more terrifying than the two gods of destruction. By the lake. The battle between Lewis and Beerus was over, and 2 more buckets of instant noodles were placed on the table. Beerus sat on the chair, watching the bubbles and swallowing his saliva. Whis wasn't much better. His eyes lit up as he stared at the instant noodles on the table, wishing that the 2 minutes would pass quickly so that he could eat the instant noodles again. Lewis's embarrassed look had disappeared, and he looked at Beerus and said jokingly, "Lord Beerus, this is the instant noodles that Taisai brought. Can she live in the world of gods of destruction? I will be angry with anyone who dares to chase Taisai away." Beerus didn't look at Lewis, staring at the instant noodles. Lewis glanced at Whis. As if to say, "See, Lord Beerus won't object to this." Whis rolled his eyes. With such delicious food here, not to mention that Lord Beerus won't object, even if he objects, I will beat him until he doesn't object. "Hey, Taisai, how do you thank me?" Lewis got Beerus's consent and looked at Tais proudly again. Taisai covered her mouth and laughed, "Lord Lewis is the most handsome and the best." That's it, that's it." Lewis raised his head with an expression of enjoyment, and the tail behind his butt was almost up to the sky. "By the way, as a condition for protecting you, we will leave our future meals to you. Of course, when I go out on a mission, I will also take you out to look for material for the novel, so you can rest assured about that." "Good." Taisai breathed a sigh of relief, her future safety was finally guaranteed. 2 minutes later, Beerus and Whis were eating instant noodles. Whis has eaten it once and still can't help but exclaim that this instant noodles is so delicious. Beerus was almost in tears because it was his first time eating this. What kind of pig food had he eaten before? After a while, when the 2 of them had eaten and drunk their fill, Lewis asked, "Lord Beerus, how much strength do I need now to reach the realm of God?" Beerus lay on the recliner, drinking the drink brought out by Tais, and said thoughtfully, "The difference between mortals and gods lies in the dimension. Although you have broken through to the level of the King of Realms, if you really want to be serious, you are still at the level of mortals. It is still difficult for mortals to fight against the gods of destruction with strength alone. Because the power of the gods of destruction is full of divine aura, it is not something that ordinary mortals can resist." Beerus looked at Lewis and said, "But there are exceptions. It seems that there is a guy named Jiren in the 11th universe. He seems to be able to fight against the gods of destruction with a mortal body. Lewis, if you want to fight me, you have to improve your Super Saiyan state by at least 100,000 times before you are qualified to fight me." 100,000 times. Lewis was stunned. The Super Saiyan 3 transformation only increased the power by 400 times. If it was based on 1 billion and then increased by another 100,000 times, how much combat power would that be? And this is just the qualification to touch it. Lewis, in the eyes of the gods of destruction, combat prowess is no longer a measure of strength. Whis saw Lewis's confusion and said, "The dimensions are divided into Hades, King of the Realm, Gods, Angels. Power is divided into Mortal, Divine, Angel. The God Realm is divided into 5 levels. Lord Beerus is at the 5th level. As for the gods of destruction in other universes, except for Quitella from the 4th universe who has just reached the 5th level, the rest are at the 4th level of the God Realm." At this time, Taisai on the side said in shock, "Wow, isn't Lord Beerus the most powerful gods of destruction?" "That's it." Beerus' vanity was greatly satisfied when he heard Tai's exclamation. No wonder this kid Lewis asked her to stay, it turns out she is so good at talking. "Not bad, not bad." Lewis was speechless, and then said, "Whis, then how can I break through to the realm of God?" Whis said, "If you want to break through to the divine realm, there are 2 ways. First, as Lord Beerus just said, there are people in the 11th universe who can fight against the gods of destruction with mortal strength. This is because the other party has cultivated mortal strength to the extreme. From what I know, the guy named Jiren, his mortal strength should be a little stronger than the 4th level of the God Realm." Whis looked at the shocked expressions of Lewis and Tais, and continued, "The second method is to cultivate the dimension and cultivate the dimension to the level of gods. In this way, one's own power will undergo a qualitative change, from mortal power to divine power. The power of the gods cannot be sensed by mortals, and the strength of the gods is also beyond the reach of mortals. Like Asen, he is obviously just a creator god, and his own power is not very strong, but Asen's dimension is the god level, and his power is also the power of God, so he is stronger than Frieza." When Lewis heard this, he suddenly realized, "I understand, is it true that under the same power, the power of gods will be stronger than that of mortals. That is to say, based on my current combat power of 1 billion, if the mortal power in my body is transformed into divine power, can I break through to the divine realm? Haha, that's what I mean, but your 1 billion combat power is not enough. So if you want to break through your power to the divine realm, you should cultivate your dimension to the divine level as soon as possible. Whis smiled, and suddenly his expression turned serious. By the way, Lewis, the transformation you just used was actually wrong. Don't use this transformation anymore in the future. Before Lewis could speak, Taisai said, why? Lewis's golden hair looks so good after the transformation. Tais, you don't understand. It takes a lot of energy for Lewis to maintain that state, and it also puts a huge burden on his body. The moment Whis saw Lewis transform into a Super Saiyan, he realized the drawbacks. Beerus put down the drink in his hand and said, Lewis, Whis is right. Only when you are strong yourself can you be truly strong. Your transformation path is wrong. Give it up. Is it really wrong? Lewis remembered the perfect state in the original work, Super Saiyan 4. No, this is a transformation unique to our Saiyan clan. You will understand it later. Chapter 14. You kid. Beerus shook his head and said nothing more. On the path of cultivation, many geniuses are self-righteous, but often their decisions are wrong. Only when they realize their mistakes will they truly give up. Even though it will waste some time. But Lewis is such a genius that even if he wastes 10,000 years, it won't be a big problem. Whis also thinks so. He doesn't think it's bad for young people to make mistakes. On the contrary, he thinks that this will make young people's memories more profound. With Beerus' unexpected awakening and Taisa's arrival in the Gods of Destruction, the quiet Gods of Destruction world has become a little more lively. Beerus also learned from Whis that Lewis had destroyed more than 5,000 planets in the past month. Beerus was excited. Sure enough, the decision to recruit Lewis as the candidate Gods of Destruction was the right one. From now on, I can finally be lazy with a clear conscience. When Taisai heard what Whis said, she had a new understanding of Lewis and destroyed more than 5,000 planets. It turns out that this young man is not as gentle as he appears. But Tais was not afraid of Lewis because he appeared to save her when she was in the most dangerous moment and promised to protect her. How could she be afraid of Lewis? In the next period of time, Lewis finally started practicing again. Beerus did not continue to sleep. Because Taisai has moved into the Gods of Destruction world, he always has delicious food to eat. How could he bear to continue sleeping? In addition to guiding Lewis in his practice every day, Whis now has another task. It is to introduce things in the universe to Taisai every day. At first, Tais thought that no one in the world knew so many things. It was not until she kept taking out earth delicacies to tempt Whis that she discovered that Whis was actually an encyclopedia. Whis knows everything, which also gives her new inspiration for her creation. Lewis is practicing. Taisai is creating. Whis and Beerus are eating. The graphics in the Gods of Destruction world are very strange. A year passed. Lewis practiced for another year, but he didn't make much progress in strength because he was always practicing in the dimension. Pity. It seems that the dimension has reached a bottleneck and it is difficult to move forward. Come on, Taisai, I need to go on a planet-destroying mission. I'll take you outside to collect materials for the novel. By the lake, Lewis stood up from the lawn and stretched. Here it comes. Tais was cooking in the distance. Her face lit up with joy. She dropped the kitchen utensils and ran towards Lewis by the lake. Lewis, are you finally willing to take me out? She has been in Gods of Destruction for a year, and she has never been outside in this year. Although I could always listen to Whis talking about what was happening outside, I still couldn't feel like I was there in person. Taisai is very happy now that she can go out. Well, I just want to practice. Please forgive me. I can take you out for a walk this time, okay? Lewis touched his head. Lewis is only 17 years old now, still a teenager. With his silly appearance, he doesn't look like the candidate Gods of Destruction at all. Okay, I forgive you. Taisai covered her little mouth and laughed. This little brother is quite cute. Tais, wait a minute, if you go out, where is my lunch today? Beerus jumped up on the lounge chair by the lake and shouted. Lord Beerus, please eat some instant noodles. I'll cook for you when I get back. Taisai turned around and pointed to the warehouse next to her. Beerus. While Beerus was speechless, Louis was on his side. Ding, go to Frieza headquarters to sign in, reward, Supreme Kai's instant transmission. An electronic voice sounded in Louis' mind. Instant transmission. Louis was ecstatic. He had been thinking about when to learn this skill. After all, as a substitute gods of destruction, he had to be led by Whis every time he went out, which was quite troublesome. In addition to traveling, instant transmission can also play a huge role in combat. This is a magical skill for escaping quickly. What you need will come to you. Whis, take us to Frieza headquarters, and you won't have to worry about anything after this. Louis quickly looked at Whis. Good. Whis didn't ask why and took Louis and Taisai away from the gods of destruction world. Northern Galaxy, Frieza headquarters. Whis brought Louis and the other person here and then returned to the gods of destruction world. Ding, successfully signed in at Frieza headquarters, reward, Supreme Kai's instant transmission. Louis' body shook, and the information about instant transmission appeared in his mind. With his current development, he can appear anywhere as long as he has the coordinates. This is fundamentally different from the instant transmission of Yadrit. The instant transmission of Yadrit is that as long as you sense the chi, you can reach where the chi is. Louis, what's wrong with you? Taisai waved her hand in front of Louis' eyes. No, just remembered something. Is that so? Then why did you come to Frieza headquarters? Taisai couldn't help trembling when she thought about the time when she was hunted by Frieza's army. Don't be afraid, I will protect you. Louis did not say that he came here just to complete the system sign-in task. He patted his chest with a serious look on his face. Taisai forgot her fear and covered her mouth. Okay, I know you are awesome, Louis. Louis remembered something. By the way, weren't you hunted by Frieza's army before? Do you want revenge? Revenge? Taisai was stunned for a moment, then shook her head and said, forget it, I almost forgot about being hunted by Frieza's army. I can't let it go. Humph, I said I would protect you, but you were bullied by others, how can I just let it go? Louis pulled Tais towards the Frieza palace. Louis is still a teenager now. Louis held her hand and walked forward. His serious look made Taisai laugh. The more she looked at him, the more she felt that this little brother was cute. Since the little gods of destruction wanted to help her get revenge, Tais no longer stopped him. Thinking back to the past, it really makes me angry. Anyway, in this universe, no one can beat the boy in front of me, so just let him be. The Frieza headquarters was indeed heavily guarded, with universe people patrolling everywhere. Along the way, Louis met many patrol teams. They came up to check on them, and Taisai couldn't help but feel scared when she saw these guys. Without saying a word, Louis destroyed them with a destructive energy bomb. A young boy and a human woman went on a killing spree at Frieza headquarters. It was the first time that Tais saw Louis's brutal side, but she was not afraid. After all, he said he would protect her, and this little brother is still helping her get revenge. Soon the two came to a palace. Frieza's palace is much more magnificent than King Vegeta's previous palace. Stop, who are you? The two universe people at the door said coldly. Send your King Frieza to see me. Louis pulled Tais, stopped, and said jokingly. How dare you let King Frieza come to see you? Are you tired of living? The universe people shouted, come on. The two guards flew into the air, raised their hand cannons, and two blue lights shot out. Louis smiled, raised his hand and lightly tapped it. The purple aura of destruction enveloped the blue light and directly disintegrated it. What? The two universe people were stunned, and then they screamed to the sky, enemy attack. Inside the palace, Frieza was sitting in the stroller, listening to Jinyu's report on Saiyan, when he was suddenly startled by the sound of enemy attack. Has it been too long since I, Frieza, took action? How dare someone invade my Frieza headquarters? The sinister voice resounded throughout the entire palace, and the temperature in the palace hall dropped rapidly, as if a layer of frost would form in the next second. Jinyu stood aside and trembled. King Frieza is so scary. Come on, follow me out, let me see who is so brave. Frieza flew out of the palace in a baby carriage, and Jinyu quickly followed. Outside, Louis held Tais's little hand and looked at the universe people surrounding them. Crowded. There were probably thousands of people. Tais looked at Louis holding her hand. She felt protected by him and felt safe. She was not afraid at all. Frieza, if you don't come out, all your men will be killed. Louis glanced around and said with bared teeth. King Vegeta will probably be very happy if we can wipe out these losers at once. Louis still remembers the lonely back of King Vegeta at the Galactic Patrol headquarters a year ago. From the moment Saiyan changed, he had no intention of ignoring Saiyan. Louis glanced at Ties next to him again, and saw that she was being chased by Frieza's army. New grudges and old grudges. Oh wow! A husky voice came from the palace gate, and Frieza flew in front of the universe people in a crib, followed closely by Jinyu. Who are you, kid? Frieza folded his hands together, his eyes extremely cold. Louis didn't say anything, just looked at Frieza quietly. The skin is purple and white, and the body is covered by a layer of hard bones. Triangular eyes. So evil. It's exactly the same as in the anime. Boy, my king is asking you a question, are you deaf? Jinyu scolded. Chapter 15. Captain Jinyu Special Forces. Louis recognized the purple-skinned guy next to Frieza. You still know me? Jinyu snorted, and suddenly saw something, pointed at the tail behind Louis' butt, and said in horror, King Frieza, he is Saiyan. It's no wonder that Jinyu is so scared, it's just that Saiyan has changed so much over the years, and even Saiyan's power is approaching him. This is Saiyan. If the opponent transforms into a giant ape, his combat power can be increased 10 times. Saiyan. Frieza narrowed his eyes, he had been troubled by Saiyan's problems over the years, he never thought that Saiyan would dare to invade his headquarters now. Show me how strong he is. Yes, I want to see how much fighting power he possesses. He actually dared to invade King Frieza's headquarters. Jinyu pressed the detector. Ding ding ding. Combat power, 100,000 combat power. Gurgle. Jinyu swallowed his saliva. This guy actually has a combat power of 100,000. Frieza on the crib noticed Jinyu's expression and narrowed his eyes, what is his combat power? Jinyu wiped the sweat off his face and said, reporting to King Frieza, he has a combat power of 100,000. Wow! The universe people around them took a step back, their faces filled with horror. The captain of the Jinyu force only has a combat power of 120,000, but this kid actually has a combat power of 100,000? Frieza raised his eyebrows, and the murderous intent on his body suddenly disappeared. He smiled and said, this sir is quite capable. Come and be my subordinate. As long as you agree, I can forgive you for invading my headquarters. Frieza is a person who loves talents. When he sees a strong person with good strength, he can't help but want to recruit him under his command. Louis raised the corners of his mouth slightly, and said jokingly, what if I don't agree? Taisai was holding her hand and quietly listened to the conversation between the boy next to her and the Emperor of Universe. It feels so good to be protected. No. Frieza's face suddenly turned gloomy and he said, then you can't leave my headquarters. After hearing what their king said, the people from the surrounding universe took a step forward. The atmosphere was very solemn. We'll talk about whether we can get out of here later. Louis chuckled and said, Frieza, I came here to ask you for some help. Looking for someone? Frieza was slightly stunned, then said coldly, I think you are looking for death. Jinyu, come on. As the Emperor of the Universe, someone invaded his headquarters and dared to provoke him again and again. Frieza could no longer hide his anger. Yes. Jinyu twisted his body and disappeared on the spot. The next moment he appeared behind Louis. Boy, the difference between 100,000 combat power and 120,000 combat power is still huge, go to hell. Jinyu gathered a violent energy bomb in his palm and smashed it towards Louis. Louise had a blank expression on her face, and Tais, who was being held by her, did not show any sign of fear. Is this giving up resistance? Frieza in the baby stroller frowned. At this time, 100,000 combat power is very weak, what about 1 million combat power? Louis laughed, the power in him bursting out. A moment. Bang. Bang. All the detectors of the universe people present exploded. Boom. The powerful air wave dispersed Jinyu's energy bomb, then blasted Jinyu away and smashed him hard on the ground. No. Impossible. Jinyu's pupils shrank sharply on the ground, and the detector next to his ear had turned into a piece of scrap metal. What just happened in just a moment. Just now, he saw the combat power data soaring rapidly, and then the detector could not bear it and exploded directly. Tais, were you scared just now? Louis said with a smile. You said you would protect me, so I'm not afraid. Tai smiled sweetly. Snow white skin, golden hair. Looking at Tai's, Louis was stunned for a moment and said, I think you will look better with long hair. Long hair? Tai touched her hair and wanted to ask. Louis had already turned to look at Frieza, so Tai's had no choice but to stop asking, but she kept the words in her heart. Well, my time is precious, Frieza, have all your men come here. Louis said coldly, otherwise. How about that? Frieza jumped out of the baby stroller and walked forward. You don't think that with 1 million combat power, you can do whatever you want in my headquarters? Frieza just heard the conversation between Louis and Jinyu. She didn't expect that this kid still had hidden strength. Jinyu, who was lying on the ground, looked delighted. According to rumors, Frieza had always been hiding his strength. Is this really true? Tais, do you remember who was chasing you? Louis asked with his head tilted, ignoring Frieza who was walking over. Tai thought for a moment and said, it seems to be a gang called Chu Yi. Chu Yi. Louis frowned, it seemed like Vegeta killed this rubbish in the anime. Boy, you're looking for death. Frieza, who was walking over, was furious. He was actually ignored by a man with only 1 million combat power. Frieza prepares to unlock his transformation. Louis suddenly disappeared beside Tais, appeared in front of Frieza, and kneed Frieza in the abdomen. Bang! Frieza flies out. Vomit. Frieza crawled on the ground, blood spurting out of his mouth. Everyone present was stunned, it must be fake. This is the Universe Emperor Frieza, and he was beaten to the point of vomiting blood by a stranger. Ah! You succeeded in angering me, I will kill you. Fulai stood up and roared hysterically, the power in him exploding. The first stage of transformation has been unlocked. At this time, Frieza changed his form and became burly, looking very much like King Cold. The strength broke through to over 1 million. The people from universe present were all pleasantly surprised that their king also had hidden strength. Can. Nonsense. Louis appeared in front of Frieza the next second and punched him. Boom. The terrifying force broke all of Frieza's teeth. Puff. Broken teeth and blood mixed together and sprayed into the air. Ah! Frieza was thrown sideways and crawled on the ground helplessly. How could this happen? Why couldn't he beat the other party even though they both had a combat power of 1 million? Frieza, look at what this is. Louis' instant transmission appeared in front of Frieza, grabbed Frieza's head with one hand, and lifted him up. The other one condensed a destructive energy bomb. The atmosphere of destruction is sweeping across the entire Frieza headquarters. The wind is howling. Lightning and thunder. The universe people surrounding them were instantly thrown to the ground, their souls trembling. Gods of destruction. The destructive energy was before his eyes, Frieza's pupils shrank sharply, and his whole body was shaking from the bottom of his heart. He recognized this power. It is the power of gods of destruction. Who is this Saiyan? Isn't Beerus the gods of destruction in the 7th universe? Why would this person in front of me destroy the power? Humph, let Chu Yi come over. Louis threw Frieza aside as if he was throwing away garbage, and the destructive energy in his hand dissipated. Yes, yes, yes. Frieza gnashed his teeth, feeling humiliated and eroding his heart, but because he didn't know the identity of the man in front of him, he didn't dare to complain. Get up from the ground. Let Chu Yi come to me. Frieza yelled at his men. Jinyu quickly used the communication equipment to ask Chu Yi to come to Frieza Palace quickly. This. Sir, who are you? Frieza wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, walked forward carefully, bent over, and asked. He looked terrified on the surface, but there was a hint of gloom in the depths of his eyes. Louis looked at Frieza, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly, are you very unconvinced? Louis looked down at Frieza, with a hint of evil at the corner of his mouth, making him look very domineering. Tais covered her chest with her hands. Louis was so handsome. No. I don't dare. Frieza clenched his fists and could only speak against his will. Ha ha ha, you really are worthy of being the spokesperson for Beerus-sama, Frieza. You are very interesting. Louis laughed. A hint of doubt flashed in Frieza's eyes. Did this person know Beerus? According to what he said, that means Beerus is not dead yet. So the person in front of me can't be the new gods of destruction, but he can destroy energy. A flash of light flashed through Frieza's mind. Frieza asked weakly, this lord must be a disciple of Master Beerus. Oh? You actually guessed it. Greetings, Mr. Candidate Gods of Destruction. I didn't recognize you just now. Please forgive me. Frieza trembled in fear. Could it be that this candidate god of destruction saw his people being hunted and came here for revenge? Louis seemed to see through Frieza's heart and said, stop talking nonsense. I won't care about what happens between you and Saiyan. I'm only here to avenge Taisai. Taisai, who was standing next to him, looked at Louis closely, and a warm feeling ran through her heart. She really wanted to ask Louis why he was so nice to her, but seeing the ugly universe people around her, she didn't ask. Louis didn't notice Taisai's expression, he kept looking at Frieza. In fact, when he came to Frieza headquarters, in addition to completing the sign-in task, he also wanted to destroy Frieza and his group directly. But I think of Son Goku, Vegeta, and the Saiyan clan. How can they do it without some suffering? Maybe the Saiyan clan will produce more Super Saiyans under Frieza's pursuit. So Louis let Frieza and his group go. Frieza glanced at the woman next to Louis. Was he seeking revenge for her? Just to avenge her, why make such a big fuss? Frieza was furious, but acted cautiously. Mr. Candidate Gods of Destruction, are you saying that you don't care about Saiyan and me? At this time, a figure dropped from the sky and landed at the gate of the palace. It's Chu Yi. What happens? Chu Yi suddenly discovered Taisai's existence and laughed, King Frieza, this woman has a very magical capsule. If we can get the technology to make this capsule, we will be rich. After he finished speaking, he suddenly realized something was wrong. Why was there so much silence? Everyone looked at him with strange eyes. Tais, is it him? Taisai looked at Chu Yi, gritting her teeth as she recalled the days when she was hunted down in the past. Then die. Louis raised his hand, destruction. A beam of purple destructive energy hit Chu Yi, and he evaporated instantly without even a struggle before death. Gurgle. All the universe people present swallowed their saliva, what a scary Saiyan. Tais, let's go. After Louis killed Chu Yi, he used the instant transmission rewarded by the system and took Taisai away from here. Only a group of dumbfounded universe people were left there. Lord Frieza, are we still going after Saiyan? Hold still for now. Frieza clenched his fists. It would be fine if Saiyan was hiding in the Galactic Patrol headquarters, but I didn't expect Saiyan to have a substitute gods of destruction. But the guy just said that the other party would not interfere in what happened between him and Saiyan. Then I remembered that the gods of destruction are responsible for destruction in the universe, and they are cold and heartless gods themselves. What the candidate gods of destruction said just now is very likely true. But no matter what, the other party is Saiyan. If he says he won't care about Saiyan, will he really do that? After leaving Frieza headquarters, Louis brought Tais to a primeval forest planet. This planet is unqualified, and Louis is ready to destroy it. Louis. Louis walked in the forest and looked back. Tais wore a body-hugging outfit that showed off her curvaceous figure to the fullest. Louis touched his nose and asked, what's wrong? Taisai hesitated to speak. Louis smiled and said, just tell me what you have to say. No, I just want to ask if I really look good with long hair. Taisai wanted to say, you just promised to protect me, why do you want to avenge me? But in the end, I didn't ask. I think it'll look good. Louis nodded. How could big golden waves not look good? Okay, I'm going to destroy this planet. Louis threw a destructive energy ball to the ground, then pulled ties and used instant transmission to leave. After destroying hundreds of planets one after another, the mission was completed. Louis brought ties back to the world of gods of destruction. Louis entered into training again, while Ties was absent-minded after being brought back. Chapter 16. 3 years passed after Louis returned to Gods of Destruction. During these 3 years, the 7th universe has undergone tremendous changes. Because Saiyan joined the Galactic Patrol, the Galactic Patrol grew stronger, and in the Northern Galaxy, the Frieza Corps began to be suppressed. The main reason is that Frieza's army is short of manpower. The strongest man under Frieza is Jinyu, who has only 120,000 combat power. Since the Saiyan clan joined the Galactic Patrol, for unknown reasons, their combat effectiveness has improved by leaps and bounds. Today, each Saiyan has at least 15,000 combat power points. The strongest Saiyan is a Saiyan named Burdock, whose combat power breaks through to 150,000. And King Vegeta should not be underestimated, he also has a combat power of 120,000. The entire Saiyan clan has more than 2,000 people. The overall strength is very strong. But no matter how powerful he is, if Frieza does it himself, with Saiyan's current strength, even if all Saiyan transform into giant ape state, it will be useless. But because Lewis and Ties went to Frieza headquarters 3 years ago, Frieza knew Lewis's identity and he didn't dare to act rashly. They also dare not hunt down Saiyan blatantly, which is one of the reasons why Saiyan can steadily improve his strength. In addition to the above changes in the 7th universe, the average human level index has also been greatly improved, from the second to last to the third to last. This change stunned the gods of destruction from other universes. More than a decade ago, Beerus made a terrible decision to let a little kid be a candidate for gods of destruction. Now 14 years have passed, why hasn't the 7th universe been destroyed by Zeno? Not only that, the ranking of the 7th universe has also risen by 1 place. The 7th universe is changing, and so is the Earth. Although the Earth was not directly interfered with by Lewis, the plot on Earth continued as normal. But the Earth was still affected by the butterfly effect. 4 years ago, Lewis asked Ties to ask Dr. Briefs to build a gravity chamber for Son Goku to use. Son Goku used the gravity room and his combat power was greatly improved. But Son Goku is a slow-growing type of Saiyan, and his combat power improvement is not very exaggerated. Today, 14 years after being sent to Earth, Son Goku, who is now 17 years old, only has 5,000 combat points. In addition to this change, 4 years later, 3 alien visitors appeared on Earth. These 3 people invaded the Earth 3 whole years earlier than in the original book. Master Roshi Island. Goku, these 3 auras are extremely evil and powerful. Can you deal with them? Krillin stood at the door, staring at the sky. I don't know. If they want to harm the Earth, I won't let them go. Son Goku also looked at the sky and made a childish voice. 17-year-old Son Goku is still a child. This is because he belongs to the slow-growing Saiyan type. He will only suddenly grow taller when he reaches adulthood. This is different from Lewis and Vegeta. I didn't expect that today, when Goku is leaving for the Celestial Realm to train, an enemy would invade Earth, said Master Roshi, looking worried. You guys stay here, I'll go over and see what's going on first. Son Goku took off into the air and flew towards the direction where the 3 universe ships were landing in the sky. The outskirts of Sato. Vegeta, Raditz and Nappa got out of the spaceship. Everyone was in rags, with blood clotted on their bodies, and looked extremely miserable. Damn it, Frieza won't even let us go back to the Galactic Patrol headquarters. Raditz lay on the ground, gritting his teeth and said, but fortunately, Frieza's elite troops did not go out in person, otherwise. Vegeta, what should we do now? We've been on the run for 14 years. Should we continue to run? Nappa said bitterly. Shut up. Vegeta clenched his fists, it's been more than 10 years, why hasn't Lewis come back yet? If Lewis comes back, Frieza will definitely be killed. Vegeta still remembers the scene when Lewis was accepted as a candidate gods of destruction by gods of destruction Beerus 14 years ago. That's the alternate gods of destruction. Who dares to mess with him? Yes, if Lewis came back, we wouldn't be in such a mess. Raditz and Nappa nodded. Okay, stop talking nonsense. This planet is where Kakarot was exiled. Let's go find him. One more person means one more force. Vegeta shook his head and pressed the detector in his ear. Ding ding ding. Southeast direction, combat power is 2000. What's going on? 2000 combat power. Vegeta was startled and tested it again, only to find that there was no error. Vegeta, is this Kakarot's power? Why is he so strong for a low-level warrior? Nappa also took a test and was shocked. You know, the strongest of the 3 of them is Vegeta, with a combat power of 30,000. He has 8,000 combat power, while Raditz has 2,000 combat power. The data of these 3 people are much higher than the combat effectiveness of the invaders on Earth in my original work. This is because the 3 of them have been hunted by the Frieza Legion and have to face life and death situations at all times. 2000 combat power is really incredible. If it is really Kakarot, then we have one more strength. Vegeta raised his head and looked at the sky in the southeast. Here it comes. Raditz clenched his fists. The man's strength was exactly the same as his, so he couldn't help but become cautious. Crash! A white light fell from the sky. Who are you? Son Goku stared at the three ragged guys in front of him and spoke in a focused voice. His childish voice and short stature made Vegeta and the other two stunned. But soon, Raditz recognized Son Goku's identity. Vegeta, this is Kakarot, and he looks exactly like my father. Vegeta also figured out why the other party was still so small, and said, he was born with only 2 points of combat power, so the growth of a low-level warrior is so slow. But I estimate that in another year, he will grow up to be an adult. Who are you? Why are you coming to Earth? Son Goku frowned. Earth? He must be talking about this planet. Vegeta looked at the detector again and found that there was still a lot of pitifully weak data. Kakarot, you didn't kill everyone on this planet. Nappa was stunned and said, haven't they all been killed yet? That's not right. With his combat power of 2000, he should have killed all the natives here long ago. Raditz shouted, Kakarot, what's wrong with you? Son Goku looked at the three of them, confused, tell me, what are you doing here? And who is Kakarot? As soon as these words came out, Vegeta and the other two looked at each other, and saw doubt in each other's eyes. You're not Kakarot. Raditz was stunned, but seeing Son Goku's appearance, he looked exactly like Bardock. No, you must be Kakarot. Vegeta and Nappa nodded, because Son Goku looked too much like Bardock. Son Goku scratched his head, confused. He was obviously Son Goku, so why did these three guys call him Kakarot? Vegeta asked, do you know you are a Saiyan? Son Goku blinked his eyes and replied, what is Saiyan? Raditz and the other two looked at each other again. There was no doubt that he had forgotten about Saiyan. Raditz asked hurriedly, did you have a head injury when you were a child? How do you know I have a head injury? Son Goku pouted and said, when I was a kid, I fell off a cliff and hit my head. It was my grandfather who saved me. These are what his grandfather told him. Thinking of Son Gohan, Son Goku felt a little depressed. Really? Raditz held his head, looked at Vegeta, and said helplessly, Vegeta, what should we do now? If you still follow Frieza's forces, I will kill everyone on this planet without hesitation and then sell it off. Vegeta's eyes narrowed as he said, but since we Saiyans have joined the Galactic Patrol, we can't do that anymore. Raditz and Nappa also thought of this. Saiyan used to obey the orders of gods of destruction Beerus, but after joining the Galactic Patrol, Saiyan no longer obeys Frieza's orders. Today, Saiyan is more like a mercenary in the Silver Patrol, accepting missions issued by the Galactic Patrol headquarters every day and no longer burning, killing and looting. At this time, Raditz looked at Son Goku and said, your real name is actually Kakarot. I am your brother. We are not from Earth. My name is Son Goku, I'm from Earth, I'm not your brother. Son Goku clenched his fists and said angrily. He is obviously from Earth, why do these people say he is not from Earth? Under the influence of anger, his hidden power began to leak out. Ding ding ding. Combat power, 3000. Combat power, 3500. Combat power, 5000. Son Goku's combat power soared all the way and finally stopped at 5000 combat power. Nappa's eyes widened, how is that possible? Raditz swallowed his saliva. It's fake. Isn't he a low-level warrior? Why is his strength stronger than that of a high-level warrior like me? Vegeta's eyes narrowed, this should be his original combat power. Before, it was only 2000 combat power, because he hid it. Vegeta saw through Son Goku's secret, stepped forward, and said, Saiyan never uses this kind of trick. This planet has something special. Obviously, Son Goku knows this hidden move and must have learned it on this planet. Kakarot, where did you learn this move? Vegeta flashed up behind Son Goku and grabbed his little shoulders. Son Goku burst out with power, knocking Vegeta's hand off, and leaped forward a few meters, angrily saying, my name is Son Goku, and I'm from Earth. Tell me, are you going to harm the Earth? Don't worry, we won't harm the Earth. Vegeta twisted his wrist, it hurt quite a bit after being shocked by the boy. Really? Son Goku said innocently, and he was no longer angry. Real? Vegeta's mouth twitched slightly, this kid is so easy to fool. But what he said was indeed true, he had no intention of harming the Earth, on the contrary he had become interested in Earth's martial arts. Then I will take you to learn how to control your chi. Actually, I haven't learned it yet. When I was preparing to go to the heaven to practice, you came here from the sky. Son Goku tilted his head and blinked his big eyes, looking so cute and silly. Son Goku flew up into the sky, and Vegeta and the other three looked at each other before following him. Just like that, by accident, Vegeta and his two companions invaded the Earth. However, the three of them did not wantonly destroy the Earth like in the original work. Instead, they followed Son Goku to heaven and accepted the guidance of Popo. Chapter 17. Gods of Destruction World. A handsome figure sat by the lake, eyes closed, meditating. There was a charming woman sitting on the grass next to her. She held her white chin in her hand and muttered, "I've been practicing for 3 years, why haven't I woken up yet? Taisai, it's time to cook." A majestic voice came from a distance. Taisai didn't even turn her head and snorted, "Lord Beerus, I'm not in a good mood. You and Whis should eat instant noodles." On the lounge chair in the distance, Beerus and Whis looked at each other. "Whis, when will this girl be in a good mood? Oh, another day of eating instant noodles. Lord Beerus, can't you see that Taisai cares about Lewis? When Lewis wakes up, Taisai will be in a better mood." "Tisk, everyone doesn't know that. You know why you ask? Stop talking nonsense and eat some instant noodles. I'm starving." Beerus licked his lips. He had been eating instant noodles for 4 years but still didn't get tired of it. Whis nodded and started to make noodles. Of course, he also made a bucket for Tais. By the lake. "Damn Lewis, you said you would take me to collect novel materials after training, and it's been another 3 years. Tais looked at Lewis who was meditating. Lewis has sword-like eyebrows, a high nose bridge and thin lips. Compared with 3 years ago, he has grown much taller and become more handsome. Lewis sat by the lake, emitting an ethereal aura from his whole body. Tais sat beside him, feeling very comfortable. "When will you wake up?" Tais was feeling a little depressed because she hadn't spoken to Lewis for 3 years. Sudden. With a buzz sound. A silver wave of air burst out from Lewis' body, like boiling steam, rushing towards all directions. Taisai next to her was almost burned by the scorching temperature. Fortunately, Whis in the distance protected her immediately and appeared next to her with Beerus. Whis and Beerus were holding instant noodles in their hands, and they were both stunned, the realm of freedom. Taisai was startled by the blast of air from Lewis, patted her towering chest and said, "Whis, why are you so surprised? Doesn't Lewis know this trick?" Beerus swallowed a mouthful of instant noodles and said solemnly, "Taisi, we are talking about the realm of perfect freedom." Whis continued, "Before, Lewis only knew the rudiments of the state of freedom, but I didn't expect that in just 4 years, he would directly comprehend the perfect state of freedom." Beerus gritted his teeth and said, "Fortunately it's not the perfect self-ease state, otherwise I would cry to death." Whis said unhappily, "So what if it's not the perfect freedom realm? The perfect freedom realm is also awesome. Lord Beerus, when did you realize the prototype of the freedom realm?" This. Beerus looked up at the sky. Taisai said excitedly, "Whis, is Lewis going to wake up?" She couldn't help but feel happy at the thought of finally being able to talk to Lewis. The repression of 3 years was released at this moment, and Taisai smiled beautifully. But Lewis still had his eyes closed, so he couldn't see. "It should be waking up. Let's stand further away." Whis finished speaking. Boom! Huge waves suddenly appeared on the lakeside, and a figure was hovering above the waves. It was none other than Lewis. "Lord Beerus, fight me!" With a splash, Lewis disappeared above the huge wave, and instantly appeared next to Beerus and punched him. This punch is so natural. Beerus' eyes narrowed, he threw the instant noodles in his hand aside, and rushed forward with a punch. Boom! Mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. The sky is full of dust. One silver and one purple were intertwined rapidly. "Whis, what's Lewis's condition now? Can he defeat Lord Beerus?" Tais asked hurriedly. "Tais, it seems like you care about Lewis a lot." Whis covered his mouth and laughed. That's it." Taisai's heart beat faster and her fair face turned slightly red. How could she care about Lewis? It was obviously because they hadn't spoken for too long that this happened. "Yes, that's definitely the case." "Really? Real?" Taisai snorted angrily, "Hurry up and tell me, how is Lewis now?" "Ha ha ha." Whis laughed loudly, stopped teasing her, and said seriously, "The realm of perfect freedom is very powerful. Even if the power difference is more than 10 times, the person who has comprehended the realm of perfect freedom can still fight against the opponent, and may even defeat the opponent. But Lewis has been cultivating the realm of freedom, but his strength and dimension have not improved much. Lewis now only has 1.5 billion combat power. Even if he enters the realm of perfect freedom, it will still be useless. It's mainly because the power gap is too big. Whis saw Taiza's anxious look and whispered, "But don't worry. You forgot about Lewis' special physique. He can ignore all negative influences. Lord Beerus can't do anything to him really." In the sky, Beerus and Lewis fought for 2 minutes, and a hole was blasted in the sky. "Your physique is terrible. Lord Beerus is so strong. I am no match for him." Lewis fell from the sky and looked at Beerus, who was also flying down. Honestly speaking, the increase in power after entering the state of freedom is not that great, even smaller than that of a Super Saiyan. But the state of freedom is about going with the flow and following your heart. When facing enemy attacks, you can predict them in advance. This is the key to defeating the strong with the weak. But Beerus truly is the strongest gods of destruction. Even when he reaches the state of perfect freedom, he is no match for them. If your power breaks through to the divine realm, I'm afraid I'll be in trouble. Beerus folded his arms and said solemnly. "It's still early." Lewis shook his head. He looked at Whis and Tais and waved, "Whis, Tais, long time no see." Whis smiled and said, "I've been training for another 3 years. It's been a while indeed." "Damn Lewis, you are so abominable. You said you would practice for a while, but you practiced for so long." Taisai rubbed her little fangs, angrily. Well, I didn't expect to meditate for so long." Lewis touched his head. Why was she so angry? "I don't care, you said you would take me to collect materials for the novel. Didn't I take you out 3 years ago?" Lewis finally understood why Taisai was so angry. It turned out that it was because he had been practicing for too long, which resulted in Taisai not collecting material for the novel. "You said it was 3 years ago." I'll go play in the universe with you later." "That's what you said." Taisai's puffy mouth revealed a smile, and the corners of her mouth kept rising. "Whis, Lord Beerus, come on, I'll go and cook a feast for you." Taisai turned and left the lake, ready to cook herself. Beerus and Whis looked at each other. Beerus clicked his tongue and said, "Is she in a good mood?" "Nonsense, Lewis is awake, how can she be in a bad mood?" Whis rolled his eyes. Ever since Lewis took Taisai out last time, Taisai has been staring at Lewis in a daze since she came back. "Even with your eyes closed, you can tell that something is wrong with Taisai." "Everyone knows that, I'm just asking." Beerus curled his lips, then said ecstatically, "I'm in for a treat, Taisai's cooking is really delicious." Beerus jumped and ran towards Tais. Lewis touched his head, looked at Whis, and asked in confusion, "Whis, what are you talking about? Why did Tais feel better when I woke up?" "It's okay, let's go over there too. The feast made by Taisai is enough to make me drool just thinking about it." Whis rolled his eyes and left. "How strange." Lewis looked at Whis's back and followed him. On the lawn next to the Gods of Destruction Palace, Taisai prepared a feast. Tempura, sushi. Whis and Beerus started eating like crazy. Lewis was also salivating. He had to say that Taisa's cooking skills were really amazing. It was totally impossible to tell that she was the daughter of the richest man on earth. "Tais, your cooking skills are still as good as ever." Whis was full and satisfied. "Haha, I can travel in the universe for so long, how can I not have some skills?" Taisai sat at the dining table, holding her chin, not looking at Whis, but looking at Lewis, and said, "If I didn't have this cooking skill, I would have gone crazy eating instant noodles and dry food every day." Lewis raised his head. Why was Tais always looking at him? "I don't understand." Lewis buried his head in his food again. Beerus was full and wiped his mouth. "No, I think instant noodles are delicious." Lewis took a sip of the drink and said unhappily, "That's just you and Whis. You don't get tired of eating those additives every day. You're really awesome." When Tais heard Lewis's ridicule of Whis and the other man, she covered her mouth and laughed secretly. Lewis looked over and exchanged glances with Tais. She had bright eyes, white teeth, and slightly parted red lips. Lewis also noticed that Tais was looking at him, and his heart beat faster. "You know what, Taisai is quite pretty." Chapter 18. Lewis coughed twice and turned his attention to Whis, Whis, what's the current situation of our 7th universe? Whis naturally knew what Lewis meant, and replied, 4 years ago you destroyed a batch of unqualified planets, and with Ascension's help, everything is developing steadily. But the time is still too short. The average human level index ranking has not changed and is still ranked 3rd from the bottom. So what if we're 3rd from the bottom? Even if Master Zeno takes action, it won't be our universe's turn. Beerus sat aside and picked his teeth. Also, I remember that other universes mocked us more than a decade ago. Lewis, when are you free? Let's go to other universes and play. Want to play around? I think you want to show off over there. Whis couldn't help but roll his eyes. Of course, he didn't stop it, because when Beerus recruited Lewis as the alternate gods of destruction, even he was severely ridiculed. Lewis touched his chin and said, Lord Beerus, don't worry. With my current strength, even if I go to other universes, it will be difficult to hit them in the face. Let's wait until my dimension breaks through to the level of gods. Besides, Lewis looked at Taisai again and said, the last time Taisai went out was 3 years ago. If I don't take her out again, I'll be annoyed by her again. In fact, Lewis had another thing to do besides this. That means a trip to Earth. According to the development of the original story, it is estimated that Vegeta will invade the Earth soon, followed by the Namek War. He didn't want to miss this kind of clash between the protagonist and the Dragon Ball boss no matter what. Little did they know that Vegeta and his 3 companions had already invaded the Earth and were now training in the heavens with Son Goku. Of course, Lewis naturally doesn't know this now. Lewis, who are you annoyed with? Taisai bit her little canine teeth, this big blockhead. I'm annoyed, come on, if you don't eat quickly, I'll leave soon. Really take me out. You don't think I would lie to you, do you? I would lie to Master Beerus but I wouldn't lie to you. Lewis looked at Beerus and laughed. The main reason is that Taisai is such a beautiful woman, and I would always feel guilty if I lied to her. Lewis, you want to die, right? What do you mean you would never lie to Tais if you lied to me? Seriously, I'm still your master, are you treating me like this? Beerus immediately blew his beard and glared. Ha 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 ha. When the other 3 heard this, they couldn't help but burst into laughter. Lewis's awakening made the dinner party very joyful. The gods of destruction world hasn't been so lively for a long time. Half a day passed and everyone was full. Whis and Beerus did not reject Lewis' suggestion to go to other universes later. After all, Lewis was right, Lewis was still too weak. If he really goes to other universes, others might be surprised by his talent, but with Lewis' current strength, he still can't slap others in the face. He couldn't even beat the other team's substitute gods of destruction, so how could he slap his face? Soon, Lewis took action on what he promised Taisai, and he took Taisai away from the gods of destruction world. Northern Milky Way. A spaceship flew across the starry sky of the universe. Inside the spaceship, Tais held her cheek and looked at Lewis closely. When I first met Lewis 4 years ago, he was still a teenager. At that time, he was carefree and liked people saying nice things to him. She just said a few nice words and Lewis promised to protect her. Looking back now, Taisai couldn't help but laugh. Lewis was such a fool. Others gained his trust with just a few words. With this kind of IQ, I'm afraid he has been sold out by others and is even counting money for others. It's really infuriating and funny. Little did he know that Lewis already knew Taisai's identity. She is an obscure character in Dragon Ball, but she is also considered a close friend of the Z Fighters, so it would be a shame if something unexpected happened to her. Tais was looking at Lewis, and Lewis noticed this, and he was also looking at Tais with a slightly slanted eye. Tais, oh, why are you looking at me all the time? Is there something on my face? Lewis touched his face and finally spoke. When he woke up this time, he always felt that something was wrong with Taisai. No, it's just that I haven't talked to you in a long time. Taisai's eyes were wandering, and it was obvious that she didn't mean what she said. For many years, she has resided in the realm of gods of destruction. There are only 4 people in the gods of destruction world, and Whis knows a lot of things. Aside from Louise, the person she talks to the most is Whis. As for Beerus, Beerus is the real gods of destruction. Taisai understood Beerus's character and knew that he was a big cat with a tough mouth but a soft heart. However, Beerus still exuded a sense of majesty occasionally, so she spoke less to Beerus. In the gods of destruction world, when Lewis was not practicing, he always accompanied her. Louis talked very interestingly and often made her laugh. But when Louise was practicing, fewer people talked to her. Whis is too modest and respectful, Beerus is too majestic and solemn. Without Louis' company, Thais always felt like something was missing. While Louis was practicing, she stayed with him. Taisai recalled the first time she went to the world of gods of destruction. Beerus wanted to attack her, but young Louis said, "She is mine." Taisai touched her long hair again. It was 3 years ago when Louis went to Frieza headquarters and said, "I think you would look good with long hair." So she grew her hair long. At this time, "Hey, Taisai, why do you have long hair?" Louis realized this when he looked at Thais. Taisai rolled her eyes and said unhappily, "I can stay if I want to. I don't need your consent. It was you who said I would look better with long hair. Now you ask this question." Taisai clenched her fists and wanted to punch Louis. Unconsciously, her heart was occupied by a young man, and now the boy has grown into a handsome man. Taisai admitted that she was moved. But the guy opposite is a big blockhead. "By the way, Louis, where are we going now?" Thais changed the subject. She didn't know what Louis thought of her, and she didn't dare to express her feelings. Louis looked at Thais's weird expression and felt that Thais was very strange, but he still smiled and said, "I will take you to a more interesting planet now." "What's so fun about this? Have you ever heard of Dragon Ball?" "No." Thais shook her head. Louis smiled and explained, "Dragon Ball is a magical thing. It can make any wish come true." Louis said the Dragon Ball function. "What? There is such a magical thing in the world? Summoning Shenron can make any wish come true, is this true? It's unrealistic to realize any wish." Louis shook his head. "Even with the Super Dragon Ball, it might not be possible to make any wish come true. Does it dare to say that it can destroy Xeno?" Louis continued, "Aren't you collecting material for your novel? I think Dragon Ball is a good material and can be written into your novel." "Yes." Taisai's eyes lit up, and she unconsciously hugged Louis' arm. "Louis, you are so smart. What you said really gave me an inspiration." Louis looked down and saw his arm embedded between the two towering figures, soft. Trying to pull his arm out. However, he did not expect that Taisai was holding him so tightly that he could not pull it out without exerting force, but if he exerted force he was afraid of hurting Taisai. Louis could only let her hold him, but his heart was beating wildly. "Oh my god! Taisai, this is fatal. The speed of the spacecraft is not very fast. It takes 2 months to travel from the gods of destruction world to Namek." But along the way, the two stopped and walked, ate, drank, and had fun in the universe, and Louis destroyed some unqualified planets by the way. The single man and the single woman stayed together all the time. Especially Thais, she often unintentionally exposes herself, which makes Louis' blood boil. There have also been some changes in the way the two get along. Half a year later, I finally arrived at Namek. Call. Call. The spaceship dropped from the sky, the hatch was opened, and Louis flew out holding Thais. Thais pressed her little face against his chest and held Louis' waist tightly with her hands. Louis landed on the ground holding Taisai. Taisai had no intention of letting go of his hands, and Louis kept holding her. Taisai is really beautiful, with fair skin and a graceful figure. Holding her is like holding a piece of delicious marshmallow. Soft. Nice smell. After a while, Louis' mouth was dry, and he felt a certain part awakening, so he quickly patted her on the back. "Taisi, we're here. Are we there yet?" Thais bit her little canine teeth, seeming very angry that Louis had interrupted her hugging him. But she still got out of Louis' arms. "Wow! Is this Namek? It's weird that the grass is blue. However, the environment here is quite good." Thais was wearing a white long dress and walking on the grass with her long legs. Louis looked at her long, white legs and touched his nose. Namek has experienced a great climate disaster before. It took a lot of effort for the Namek people to recover to its current state. As Louis spoke, a faint breath came from the sky. It looks like it has a combat power of about 20,000. Taisai noticed his expression. "Louis, what's wrong with you?" Louis smiled and said, "It should be that the great Elder Namek knows that I am here." Elder Namek is a magical person. He seems to know many secret arts, and he is very likely to know the secret art of prophecy. They must have foreseen the arrival of him, the candidate gods of destruction, and that's why they sent people here. Louis explained to Taisai about the great Elder Namek, and Taisai's little mouth opened into an O shape. When I followed Jake before, I didn't realize there was such a magical race in the universe. That's because you were on the run the whole time, so you didn't notice it. Chapter 19. Louis said as a Namek who looked very much like Piccolo landed in front of him. Nehru said respectfully, "Greetings to the candidate gods of destruction." These words made Louis stunned. He didn't expect that the Great Elder even knew his identity. "I'm going to see your Great Elder. The Great Elder is already waiting for the candidate for gods of destruction. Please follow me." Nehru had been watching Louis. Louis did not exude a strong aura. Could this be the terrifying god that the Great Elder mentioned? Nayla flew into the sky. Louis flew into the air holding Tais. Taisai's feet didn't touch the ground, and she quickly hugged Louis' waist tightly. I don't know if she was afraid of falling or she wanted to take advantage of Louis. We came to a village. At the end of the village was a stone tower with a white house on it. The house is full of Namek characteristics, exactly the same as in the anime. Louis followed Nehru as he landed on the stone tower and walked into the house. Nilo really wanted to tell the woman to wait outside, but when he thought about the fact that Louis was the scary spirit the Great Elder had mentioned, he decided not to do so. Entering the house and going to the second floor, Tais saw the huge Namek man and was so scared that she hid in Louis' arms. "Louis, he. Louis was speechless. Why didn't he realize that Taisai was so clingy before? It seems that after he woke up this time, Taisai became clingy. "Don't be afraid, this is Great Elder Namek. Grand Elder Namek." Taisai then revealed her face from Louis' arms and looked at the Great Elder. Elder Namek is really big, 3 meters tall, but he is very old, which can be seen from his withered skin. The Great Elder glanced at Tais, and finally looked at Louis. "Meet the candidate gods of destruction." The Great Elder apologized, "I am physically disabled and cannot stand up to salute. Please forgive me, Lord Gods of Destruction." "Fine." Louis waved his hand and said with a smile, "It seems that the Great Elder had already predicted my whereabouts." The Great Elder was startled and quickly said, "Please forgive me, sir. I discovered your whereabouts when I was predicting Namek's future." Beads of sweat the size of beans fell from his face. If he could predict the whereabouts of the gods, he might be wiped out. Louis also knew that the Great Elder did know the secret technique of prophecy, and said, "Ha, rest assured, Great Elder, I don't mean to blame you." The Great Elder was relieved. Then, "Sir, do you have any instructions for Namek? I want to use your wishing beads." "Okay, I'll let Nilo take you to collect the wishing beads." The Great Elder agreed without hesitation. Compared with facing Frieza in the original novel, the Great Elder was so straightforward when facing Louis. How can you not be happy? If you offend Frieza, you will die at most, but at least you can be reincarnated. But if you offend Louis, you won't even have a chance to be reborn. After receiving the order from the Great Elder, Nilo took Louis out. "Louis, that Great Elder seems to be very afraid of you." Taisai was held in Louis' arms and flew in the sky, enjoying the warmth in his arms. "The Great Elder knows my identity, so he must be scared. Have you forgotten those planets that have offended me before?" Louis was referring to the planets he had destroyed while they were traveling in the universe over the past 6 months. Taisai thought of this and immediately swallowed her saliva. "Then I should be afraid of you. Gods of destruction and the like, that's so scary. With just a flick of their fingers, they can destroy a planet without leaving any trace." The 3 of them set out from the village where the Great Elder lived, and traveled to 6 other villages, finally collecting all 7 Dragon Balls. In an open space, Nero piled the Dragon Balls together and glanced at the young man. What kind of power does this deity possess to be able to scare the Great Elder like this? Nilo breathed a sigh of relief. It was quite stressful to be with an unknown existence. "Come out, Poranga!" Nehru shouted in the Namek language. The sky suddenly became quiet. Tais held her breath. Louis was also observing the 7 Dragon Balls on the ground. This was the first time he saw a Dragon Ball since he came to this world. I have to say, Namek's Dragon Ball is really big. Compared to the Dragon Ball which is as big as the Earth's fist, Namek is almost no different from a basketball. Of course, Namek can grant more wishes than Earth Dragon Ball. As Louis thought about the pros and cons of Namek Dragon Ball in the original work. Boom! The sky is covered with dark clouds and thunder is rumbling. A thick golden light suddenly emerged from 7 huge Dragon Balls and shot up into the sky. Thunder and lightning. The dark sky suddenly became bright, and the golden light condensed into a body. This scene shocked Tais. Although Louis had seen this kind of scene in anime, he was shocked to see it with his own eyes. Roar! A huge green western shenron appeared in the sky. Tell me your wishes, I can make them come true no matter what they are. Hiss! Candidate gods of destruction, why are you here? Bolongia took out a handkerchief from somewhere and wiped the sweat from his face. Nalu's eyes widened. What the hell, even Shenron has to kowtow to this young man. Can't I be here? The corner of Louis' mouth twitched slightly, and he wanted to say, Bolongia, where did you get this handkerchief? Seeing Shenron's flattering attitude, Taisai covered her mouth and smiled. This time, she and Louis came out of the gods of destruction world and had seen too many such groveling scenes. No, I am Bolongia, and I have met the candidate gods of destruction. More and more beads of sweat appeared on Bolongia's face. Okay, stop talking nonsense and make my wish come true. Louis spoke up, the first wish is for Saiyan to survive in the universe. After he knew that Saiyan had changed, he had no intention of stopping caring about the Saiyan clan. I rejected King Vegeta's request 4 years ago, so now I will do something for the Saiyan clan. Well, please say it again in Namek language, sir. Porangia became even more panicked. It would not be destroyed on the spot if it made a request to the candidate gods of destruction. But it really requires this step, otherwise it really cannot realize this wish. Louis was slightly stunned by this request. He thought that Namek Shenron would recognize his identity and would be under pressure from his identity and would not need to use the Namek language to make a wish. It didn't happen. After a little thought, I figured out the key. These Shenron wishing methods have been fixed by Salama. Just like a program, no matter which conditional step is missing, the program will eventually fail to execute. Nilu on the side heard what Bolunga said and quickly told the story in Namek language. Buzz. Bolongia's eyes flashed red. Alternate gods of destruction, your wish has been granted. Louis' body shook slightly, and he instantly realized that something had changed in his body. Saiyan will be able to change his breathing method in the universe later on, breathing through his own chi. Once one's own chi is consumed, one can no longer survive in the universe. Strictly speaking, this doesn't really count as being able to survive in the universe. But considering Namek Shenron's level, Louis felt that it was good enough that his wish had come true like this. Sudden bang. The miraculous power in Louis suddenly dissipated. Louis was startled. Taisai asked in confusion, Louis, what's wrong with you? Louis waved his hand and smiled, it's okay. It turns out that immunity worked. Because of immunity, he can survive in the universe. The miraculous power bestowed upon him by Shenron changed the way he survived in the universe. This change still has its weaknesses. For Louis, this desire has a negative impact on him. Immunity will naturally clear the miraculous power that Shenron bestowed on him. Please tell me your second wish, alternate gods of destruction. A second wish. Let me think about it. Louis was suddenly stunned. It seemed as if he really had no wishes to make. Because he knew that Shenron's limitations were actually very large, and not every wish could be fulfilled. Immortality? Immortality? Regardless of whether Wave Wheel Plus can achieve these, after Louis became the candidate gods of destruction, these are no longer a problem for him. In other words, no more wishes. Tais, do you have any wish? At this time, Louis looked at Tais. Taisai didn't expect Louis would still care about her, and smiled, no, just make the wish you want, don't consider mine. Louis touched his chin, thought for a moment, and looked up at the wave in the sky. Let Taisai stay young forever. Chapter 20. Louis' voice was very faint, but to Tais it sounded like thunder, striking directly into her heart. She covered her mouth, unable to believe her ears. After Nira finished speaking in the Namek language, Pulun's eyes glowed red again. Taisai suddenly felt that her skin became smooth and white, as if she had returned to the age of 18. Alternate gods of destruction, your second wish has been granted. Please tell me your third wish. You have no more wishes, just leave now. Louis smacked his lips. He couldn't think of any other wishes. Okay, I'll take my leave now. Bolongia breathed a sigh of relief, and immediately turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the sky. Your Excellency, alternate gods of destruction, I don't have any more instructions for you. I'll take my leave now. Nalu thought for a moment and spoke. Wait a minute, tell the Great Elder that Namek doesn't need to worry about the crisis he's about to encounter. Someone from my Saiyan clan will help. Boom. Nalu's body shook. Would Namek be in danger in the future? Thank you, Gods of Destruction candidate. When Nilu thought of the identity of the man in front of him, he was suddenly overjoyed. Even if a crisis does arise in the future, Namek will definitely be able to survive it safely with the promise of the alternate Gods of Destruction. Nilu left, leaving only Taisai who was still in a daze and Louis with a funny look on his face. Louis smiled and said, Tais, what's wrong with you? Taisai's nose felt sore and she looked at Louis with red eyes. Why did you make this wish? You said that you wished to keep your youth forever. Can I say that I made this wish because I couldn't think of any other wishes? Louis was teasing her. Taisai was originally very touched, but after hearing this, she snorted angrily, Louis, you BD. Ha ha ha. Louis came up, rubbed her little head, and said gently, the days of cultivation are too long, I want you to stay with me all the time. Boom. A strange feeling came over me and my emotions exploded. Taisai's eyes were filled with tears and she covered her mouth. Are you telling the truth? I'm not stupid, so how can I not see what's on your mind? Louis reached out and gently wiped the tears from her face. Half a year ago, when he woke up, he found that something was wrong with Taisai, but he didn't think much of it at first. But when he accompanied her to travel in the universe, he found that Taisai became more and more clingy. Louis was not stupid, so he could see what Taisai meant. He also found that he had started to care about her without knowing when. Every time he saw Tai's smile, he always felt very happy. Every time he saw Taisai frowning, he would also get annoyed. Then you like me? Taisai lowered her head and said timidly. Silly boy, didn't I tell you? I just want to be with you forever. Louis held her in his arms and said solemnly, Tais, I like you. Louis, I like you too. Taisai smiled, and time seemed to stand still in this stunning smile. Taisai hugged Louis' waist, raised her head and smiled innocently, Louis, I'm so happy. Ha ha ha, I'm very happy too. I never thought that the flatterer I brought back that year would become my wife. Damn Louis, you are the flatterer. Taisai pouted and gently twisted Louis' waist, then said happily, Louis, then can I keep this appearance forever? Yes. Louis looked at Tais. She had delicate cheeks, long eyelashes, and her eyes blinked, making her look shy and cute. Although she is a mature big sister, she behaves like a girl. Taisai is so beautiful. Tais. Louis held her little face in his hands. Tais looked into his eyes and slowly closed her eyes. Half an hour later. Taisai's little face blushed and she touched her little mouth. Louis, it's all your fault. It's all swollen. You can't really blame me. Louis hugged Taisai tightly in his arms and whispered in her ear, it's all because Taisai is too charming. You. Taisai's heart was beating fast. Louis' sweet words were so lethal that her body went limp after hearing them. Taisai lowered her head, pinched the corner of her clothes and said shyly, Louis, you are breaking the rules. Louis clearly didn't know anything before, and he would blush out of embarrassment when she deliberately exposed her legs and bare to him. Now that the relationship has been confirmed, ugly Louis is like an old driver. Louis, were you pretending before? I obviously like you so much, can't you see it? Taisai pouted and snorted. I really didn't see it at first, but I slowly saw it later. Louis kissed her on the forehead, I never thought my Taisai would be so bold. Inside the spaceship, Taisai often ran out with a bath towel hanging on her body, which would fall to the ground from time to time. Thinking of that scene, Louis' heart started beating wildly. I'm not bold. I only act like this in front of you. She lowered her head, her whole face red like a ripe red apple. People said he committed a foul, but in Louis' heart, Tai's words were even more of a foul. Louis held her little face in his hands and lowered his head again. Half a day passed. Well, my Taisai, now we should go somewhere else. Louis hugged Tais tightly and took her to the sky. Finally, she had something to care about in this world. Being held in arms, Taisai felt very happy. She could finally be held in arms by Louis with a clear conscience. After returning to the landing place of the spaceship, the two boarded the spaceship and left Namek. The other side. Nilu returned to the place where the Great Elder lived and told him what Louis had said. The Great Elder muttered, so the candidate gods of destruction knows everything. Earth. It took another 3 months to get from Namek to Earth. It has been almost a year since Lewis left the gods of destruction world. The spacecraft landed on the Zidal wasteland. Lewis, why do you suddenly want to come to Earth? My people are here, and you can come and see your parents by the way. Lewis took Taisai to fly to Zidal City. You still have people on Earth? Have. Lewis suddenly looked up at the sky and said in disbelief, and there is more than one. 4 powerful auras came from the heaven. According to the combat power estimation, the strongest one should have a combat power of about 80,000. There's an aura that sounds very much like Vegeta's. Why is he on Earth during this time period? Shouldn't he have invaded Earth 2 years later? Lewis frowned and muttered. Taisai leaned against him and raised her hand to touch his well-defined cheek. What's wrong with you? No, I'll take you to the heaven to play. Heaven. You'll know when you get there. Lewis' flying direction changed instantly and he flew quickly towards the sky. Heaven. It was a sunny day, and in the center of the temple square sat a figure who looked very similar to Burdock. This person was none other than Son Goku, who had just reached adulthood. There are 4 gravity rooms nearby, 3 of which are occupied by people who are practicing in them. There was another Namek at the edge of the celestial realm. When he observed the lower realm, he suddenly became uneasy and broke out in a sweat. This pressure. What's going on? Getting stronger and stronger. Here it comes. Crash. A ray of light flew from the lower world and appeared in the heaven. A powerful gust of wind blew the gods to the ground. Who are you? The god was shocked. The other party's dimension was so high, could it be King Kai? The noise of the incoming people also woke up Son Goku, who was in the center of the temple square. Who are you? Son Goku got ready for fighting and looked at Lewis and Tais. That's right. Kakarot is training in the heavens at this time. He will train there for another 2 years and then participate in the world's first martial arts tournament. After that, once Shishi gets married and has son Gohan, it will be Vegeta's turn to invade the Earth. Lewis looked at Son Goku and muttered to himself. Son Goku and the god looked at each other. What's wrong with this guy? Why doesn't he speak? Sudden. Kakarot, is Vegeta in there? Lewis pointed to the gravity room in the middle. What? Although Son Goku is still a bit nervous since he became an adult, he has matured mentally and knows his own life experience. He heard Lewis calling him Kakarot and blurted out, "Are you Saiyan?" The god also noticed the tail around Lewis' waist and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Goku, he seems to be of the same species as you. In his opinion, Vegeta, Raditz and Nappa appeared on Earth and had no intention of harming the Earth, so this Saiyan should not do such a thing. Son Goku also noticed Lewis' tail and said, Vegeta is in there, are you also fleeing here? Vegeta and his 2 companions were hunted by Frieza's army and then fled to Earth. Escape. Taisai on the side covered her mouth and laughed. Who would dare to let Lewis escape? It was a good thing that he didn't let others escape. Lewis was stunned. He quickly remembered what Whis had told him, that Vegeta and the other 2 had been being chased. Lewis shook his head. I didn't come here to escape. Tell Vegeta to come out. Just say my name is Lewis. Okay, I'll get Vegeta out right away. Son Goku went to the middle gravity room and pressed the communication button from the outside. Vegeta, a Saiyan named Lewis is here to see you. Who? Who are you talking about? A loud shout suddenly came from the communication device, and then the gravity room opened from the inside and a figure walked out. He has a high hairline, a shiny forehead, and wears tight training clothes. Vegeta came out, holding Son Goku tightly. Is Lewis here? Where is he? Before Son Goku could speak, Lewis spoke up. Long time no see, Vegeta. Vegeta looked at the man behind Son Goku and his body shook. It was really Lewis. Lewis, you're finally back. Chapter 21. Vegeta was very excited. As soon as he saw Lewis, he spoke out his frustration. It started with Vegeta's escape from Star, and ended with Frieza's army preventing the 3 of them from returning to the galactic headquarters. Finally, out of desperation, he, Raditz and Nappa chose to come to Earth to seek help. After hearing everything, Lewis finally understood why Vegeta appeared on Earth. The historical correction is really awesome. Vegeta still came to Earth and trained in heaven with Son Goku. Lewis, our Vegeta planet was destroyed by Frieza, you have to avenge us Saiyans. Vegeta clenched his fists and shouted. Okay, I know about the Vegeta Star incident. You guys can take revenge. I won't interfere. Louis waved his hand. Aren't you the candidate gods of destruction? You can kill Frieza with just a flick of your finger, why don't you take action? Vegeta yelled. King Vegeta asked Louis the same question back then, and Louis coldly rejected King Vegeta's request. But now, I can kill Frieza, but are you willing to let me do it? Louis said calmly. This time, Louis did not coldly reject Vegeta's request. Because after the Saiyan joined the Galactic Patrol, things became different. Those vicious and evil Saiyans who burned, killed, and looted actually became the guardians of the universe. This is becoming the same as the Sarada Defense Force in Universe 6. Vegeta fell silent. Louis asked again, do you still want me to take action? If you let me take action, I will do it immediately. Louis glanced at Vegeta and Son Goku, then said, I will go and avenge our Saiyan clan immediately. Never mind. Vegeta's poker face actually showed a smile, just let us do it. Vegeta is the prince of the Saiyan clan, a proud Saiyan. Facing the enemies of his tribe, he would not be willing to ask the alternate gods of destruction for help, and he wanted to take revenge with his own hands. Kakarot, do you want to come with me to seek revenge? Vegeta looked at Son Goku, who was in a daze. If it were in the past, he would not have the confidence to say this. After all, Frieza is the emperor of the universe. But after coming to Earth, he became confident. The cultivation methods of the Earth, and those gravity chambers. Besides this, there is one most important person, and that is Son Goku in front of us. Okay, I'll go with you then. Son Goku touched his head and smiled innocently. You fool! Vegeta looked at the innocent Son Goku and felt both angry and amused. Louis was also amused by Son Goku's personality. Vegeta has changed, but Son Goku is still Son Goku. Fine. Louis suddenly asked, when are you going to take revenge? Son Goku looks towards Vegeta. Vegeta frowned and said, give it another 2 years. In 2 years, Kakarot and I will surely be stronger than Frieza. Well, then I will be there in person to watch you take revenge. Louis failed to alert Vegeta to Frieza's true power. After all, how can you transform into a Super Saiyan without encountering some hardships? Louis took Taiza's hand and prepared to turn around and leave, but suddenly remembered something and said, do you two want to go to another place to learn 2 powerful secret techniques? What secret technique? Son Goku questions. Kaioken and Spirit Bomb. Louis said slowly, if you want to learn, I can let King Kai teach you. Good. Vegeta nodded in agreement. For a secret technique to be highly regarded by a candidate gods of destruction, it must have some special features. Son Goku smiled and said, well, I want to learn it too. The two agreed that Louis did not take them to King Kai the first time. First of all, in his observation, Vegeta's combat power is only 70,000, and Son Goku is about 80,000. Vegeta is still the second in command after all. Secondly, the two of them have not yet practiced enough in martial arts. Especially Son Goku. Louis accepted Whis' instruction and could tell at a glance that Son Goku's martial arts foundation was inadequate. Only if Son Goku fully accepts that man's teachings will he have the opportunity to enter the ultimate state at the future tournament of power. As for that person, Louis was talking about Popovich. Louis suspected that Bobo might belong to the Angel clan. After all, in the eyes of others, Bobo had been serving the gods of the earth for a long time. In addition to this, the actions displayed by Bobo are also very similar to Angel. No sadness, no joy, no desire, no demand. When training Son Goku as a child, it was a 50-50 chance. When training Son Goten and Trunks transformed Super Saiyan, they were equally matched. Finally, Louis did not disturb Bobo for the time being. He took Taisai away and let the 4 Saiyans continue to practice in the heaven. Louis, what happened there just now? That's the heaven I mentioned. It's where the gods of the earth live. There are gods on earth? How come I didn't know that? You're not the only one who doesn't know. Many people on earth don't know either. Also, you've been staying in the universe, so you have no chance of knowing this. That's true. The two flew all the way back to Zidu. Time flies and another year has passed. During this year, Louis stayed at Taiza's house. Louis was very handsome and he was quickly recognized by Bulma. As for the Briefs couple, they didn't have any objections to Louis. Instead, they thought it was a good idea. Tais now has a husband, and he should be able to control her. After all, it is too dangerous to let a woman enter the universe alone. But Louis said that he would always protect Taisai and let Taisai do whatever she wanted. Bulma doesn't think that Louis, with his frail body, can protect Tais from harm in the universe. Unless you have the power of Son Goku and Vegeta. Until Tais revealed Louis' identity and asked Louis to show off his skills. After Louis destroyed the planet not far from the Earth, Bulma realized that she had made a mistake. She did not expect Louis to have such a noble identity and such powerful power. Now Bulma and her family believe that Louis can protect Tais. Well. Chapter 22. 1 year later, in heaven. Louis came here alone, and among the 4 gravity rooms, only 3 were still occupied. Son Goku sat cross-legged in the center of the temple square. Greetings, Mr. Candidate Gods of Destruction. The god came over and said respectfully. During this year, he also learned Louis' identity. No need to be so polite. Yes. How long has Kakarot been meditating? Son Goku has been meditating for half a year. The god thought about it. Half a year. Louis stroked his chin and looked at the other 3 gravity rooms. It is obvious that Vegeta and his 2 companions and Son Goku have different training methods. One is to meditate and comprehend martial arts, and the other is to use the gravity room to cultivate strength. Teach students in accordance with their aptitude. Louis looked at the interior of the temple meaningfully. It seemed to be the Popo cults. Then I'll come back later. You can let me know when Kakarot wakes up. Louis prepares to leave the heavens. Sudden. An extremely faint ethereal aura emanated from Son Goku, and then disappeared. Is this laying a solid foundation for ultimate freedom? Louis looked at Son Goku in the center of the temple square and raised his eyebrows slightly. Son Goku's current condition is exactly the same as when he was practicing the free state. But unlike Son Goku, Louis was rewarded with the prototype of the state of freedom by the system, and then he practiced for another 4 years before he reached the perfect state of freedom. Son Goku is truly worthy of being the protagonist of Dragon Ball, his talent is truly extraordinary. In addition, Louis also confirmed his own thoughts, that Bobo is indeed not an ordinary person. Son Goku stood up, walked to Louis, and said with a smile, Louis, why are you here? Have you forgotten what I told you? You mean to learn Kaioken? Son Goku is delighted. Go get Vegeta out. What about Raditz and Nappa? If they don't have the talent, there's no need to call them. Just go ahead. Hearing this, Son Goku nodded and didn't say anything more. Son Goku calls Vegeta out, and Vegeta also looks delighted, as a substitute for Kaioken, who is highly regarded by the gods of destruction. That must be awesome. Louis took the 2 of them and disappeared directly into the heaven. King Kai Star is located in the underworld. If you are an ordinary person, you will never be able to find where the underworld is. But Louis is different. He is the candidate gods of destruction, and his dimension has reached the King Kai level, so he naturally knows where the underworld is. Louis took Son Goku and the other person across the barrier between the human world and arrived in front of the Hades palace in the underworld. Stop! A ghost guard from the King of Hell's palace stood up. You are mortals? How dare mortals break into the underworld? Come on, send them back to the mortal world. Before he could finish, a sound of fear came from the King of Hell's hall. Which king of the world has descended upon Hades' palace? A huge bullhead that looked very similar to Ox King ran out, with a panicked look on its face. However, he soon discovered that the people who came were not the 5 kings of the realms he was familiar with, but a young man who was at the same level as the kings of the realms, and 2 mortals. This. You must be the King of Hell, right? I have something to do with King Kai, so don't bother me if you have nothing else. Louis said calmly before taking Son Goku and the other 2 flying towards the snake path. The King of Hell on the spot didn't dare to speak, and he was wondering in his heart who this new king of the realm was. Son Goku and Vegeta remained silent throughout the entire journey on the Snake Road. Hey, Vegeta, why are so many people afraid of Louis? Nonsense, who isn't afraid of the alternate gods of destruction? Are the candidate gods of destruction strong? One finger can kill you, do you think it's strong? Louis, is what Vegeta said true? Son Goku looked at Louis with shining eyes. The corner of Louis' mouth twitched slightly. You fool, you don't want to duel with me, do you? Seeing that Louis didn't speak, Son Goku said, Louis, can you fight with me? Cannot. Louis started talking directly, and after that, he disliked the slow speed, grabbed Son Goku and disappeared directly on the snake path. The next second, he appeared at the end of the snake path. There was a very small planet hovering above the end of the snake path. Walk. Louis took the two of them and flew to the King Kai planet. The moment you land. Ho ho ho, a gorilla appeared in front of the three people. Barbulus, stop bothering me. Louis couldn't recognize who it was, so he slapped it away. Son Goku and Vegeta swallowed, what a rude guy. King Kai, come out. Louis' voice spread throughout the King Kai star. King Kai, who was sleeping on the back of King Kai star, opened his eyes instantly. Who is it? How dare you disturb King Kai's sleep? King Kai was full of anger and ran for a minute before finally coming in front of Louis. Who are you? You don't know how to disturb someone. Hiss. King Kai suddenly took a breath and looked at Louis. Who are you? Why is your dimension so high? Two more mortals. King Kai's eyes widened immediately. What happened today? Why would a strange god from the Kai King dimension come here? Well, King Kai, I'm here to ask you to teach them both Kaioken and Spirit Bomb. How do you know I know these two special skills? And who are you? King Kai frowned. Stop talking nonsense and just teach me if I ask you to. Louis said unhappily. You can let me teach you, but you have to tell me a joke. King Kai was very confused about Louis' identity. When did another King Kai appear? And the other party brought two mortals here just to ask him to teach them Kaioken and Spirit Bomb? However, the aura of the King Kai in front of him is not evil, so it is not impossible to teach him. Louis had two black lines on his forehead. Is he telling a joke again? King Kai, do you recognize this thing? Louis raised his hand, and a purple energy appeared in his hand. Suddenly, the wind was blowing so hard that the entire King Kai planet was shaking. Son Goku and Vegeta were shocked when they saw this. Faced with this force, they had no intention of resisting. It was obvious that if they were hit, they would not survive. Son Goku and Vegeta looked at each other. This Louis is too scary. How could you destroy energy? King Kai was shocked. The scene of Beerus destroying his planet was still vivid in his mind. Could it be? Could it be that Lord Beerus is dead? King Kai's face turned pale, and he kept swallowing his saliva, shaking with fear. Beerus, who was far away in the world of gods of destruction, suddenly sneezed. Who was saying bad things about him? If Lord Beerus knew you said that about him, do you think you could still keep your King Kai star? Master Beerus is really not dead. King Kai crawled on the ground, as if protecting his King Kai planet, and said in a trembling voice, No. No, this is my last planet. Okay, I'm not interested in your King Kai star. Just teach them two to me. Louis dissipated the destructive energy in his hand. Since Lord Beerus is not dead, you must be the current candidate gods of destruction. King Kai stood up from the ground, shocked. Be good. That lazy BD actually accepted a disciple. Louis spoke up, King Kai, is everything okay? King Kai didn't dare to object and swallowed his saliva. Don't worry, Mr. Candidate Gods of Destruction, I will definitely teach them well. Okay, then I'll leave them to you. Louis turned and looked at Son Goku and the others. Just focus on your training, I'm leaving now, I'll come pick you up in a year. When Louis was about to leave, he turned around and continued, by the way, Spirit Bomb may not be suitable for everyone. It doesn't matter if you can't learn it. You just need to learn Kaioken. Before they can transform into Super Saiyan, Kaioken is their most useful move. As for the Spirit Bomb, it seems that only people with a pure heart can learn it. Not everyone can learn the Spirit Bomb. Louis is giving Vegeta a shot of prevention so that he won't collapse when he can't learn it. After Louis finished speaking, he left. Chapter 23. Louis returned to Earth, and he and Tais stayed together. Louis soon received a message from Whis, asking him to take Tais back to cook. But how could Louis agree? Louis joked that since Thais was his woman, he should not let her cook anymore. This made Whis and Beerus roll their eyes. What a BD who values women over his teacher. At this time, Taisai suggested that they just let Beerus and the other person come to Earth. Because her cooking skills are nothing on Earth, there are many people who cook better than her. When Beerus and Whis heard this, their eyes lit up. But there was something that bound them up, so they had to postpone their plan to go to Earth. Louis asked them, but they didn't say why. Gods of Destruction World. Beerus and Whis stood in front of the Gods of Destruction Palace, looking up at the sky. Lord Beerus, are you really not going to tell Lewis about the other universe's candidate Gods of Destruction coming to the 7th universe? What's the point of telling him? Don't forget that those guys are here to disgust me. Just because I accepted a candidate for Gods of Destruction, they followed suit. Beerus gnashed his teeth and said, they will definitely recruit some people whose power has reached the level of God. With Lewis's 1.5 billion combat power, even if he transforms into a Super Saiyan, it will be useless. It's disgusting just thinking about it. Whis laughed and said, who made Lord Beerus so unpopular? Every god of destruction in the universe wants to mock you. Even your brother wants to come over and mock you. Humph, wait 2 more years and see who laughs at whom. Well, with Lewis' physique, no one can defeat him. Maybe you can taunt him back, Lord Beerus. Whis laughed. Beerus' eyes lit up. Yes, the other universe's candidate Gods of Destruction's power must be at the level of God. If they fight with Lewis and can't beat him, then I can just taunt them back. Lewis currently only has 1.5 billion combat power. But with just 1.5 billion combat power, he can't even defeat Whis, let alone the other universe's candidate Gods of Destruction who can defeat Lewis. Fortunately, Whis didn't know what Beerus was thinking, otherwise he would definitely say, let alone me, even if it was my father, there would be no way. Beerus laughed crazily, let's go to Earth first. Those guys will definitely come to Earth to find me. Gurgle. Whis swallowed his saliva, his eyes sparkled and he said, great, Tai-Sai said there are still many delicious foods on Earth. I feel relieved now. Then hurry up and go. Northern Galaxy, Frieza headquarters. Hateful. A sharp and sinister voice spread throughout the Frieza headquarters. All the universe people in the hall didn't dare to say a word, for fear of offending the universe emperor on the rocking car. Frieza crushed the wine glass in his hand and said through gritted teeth, damn Galactic Patrol, why are you going against me? Frieza didn't know why Saiyan joined the Galactic Patrol. Frieza only knew that Saiyan betrayed him. What he hated most in his life was betrayal. So Frieza has been letting the Frieza Corps hunt down Saiyan. It was somewhat effective at first, killing more than a dozen Saiyans. But later, Saiyan learned his lesson and when he encountered Frieza's army, he fled back to the Galactic Patrol headquarters. The Galactic Patrol headquarters was a place that even Frieza didn't dare to enter. Plus the incident 4 years ago when the alternate Gods of Destruction invaded his headquarters. Frieza doesn't dare to chase Saiyan anymore. Saiyan has become increasingly powerful over the past decade. Especially Bardock, his fighting power is even greater than Jinyu's. If he doesn't take action, no one in the Frieza Corps will be able to restrain Saiyan. But he also has to consider the alternate Gods of Destruction. At this time, King Frieza, I heard a legend. A universe person walked into the palace and hurried to Frieza, King Frieza, I heard a legend about immortality. Frieza, who was furious, heard this and his expression suddenly changed, hurry up and tell me. While I was on a mission, I heard an ancient race say that if you find the legendary Dragon Ball, you can make any wish come true. If any wish is granted, it means that not only can a person achieve immortality, but also gain powerful strength. If the ancient race didn't lie, then yes. Come on, where is Dragon Ball? Frieza's face lit up with joy. The universe man wiped the sweat off his face and said, King Frieza, I only heard about this. I don't know where the Dragon Ball is. As soon as these words were spoken, a cold murderous aura instantly filled the palace. Find it for me. You must find out where Dragon Ball is. As long as I gain immortality and great power, I will break into the Galactic Patrol headquarters. Earth. Lewis was lying in Taiza's backyard, drinking a drink and enjoying life. Taiz is not here. She and Bulma went shopping. After all, the two sisters haven't seen each other for many years. Deep sisterly love. Now they stick together every day. At this time, a colorful stream of light appeared in front of Lewis. Boy, life is so comfortable. Hey, isn't this my Lord Beerus? Lewis opened his eyes and smiled, aren't you busy? I asked you to come to Earth but you didn't come. Why are you here again now? His tone was full of teasing. Beerus gritted his teeth, this brat. Beerus rolled his eyes and said jokingly, boy, there is good news and bad news, which one do you want to hear? Whis covered his mouth and laughed secretly. Lewis closed his eyes, Lord Beerus, I don't want to hear it. Two black lines crossed Beerus' forehead and Whis just laughed out loud. You have to listen even if you don't want to. Beerus snorted, the good news is, you're going to be successful. Louis raised his eyebrows, then opened his eyes and said, what about the bad news? The bad news is that you're going to have to fight with the alternate gods of destruction from other universes. What? Louis shot up from the beach chair and stared at Beerus. He finally understood what Beerus meant by standing out. This is to have him fight against the alternate gods of destruction from other universes, and with his immunity, he will naturally not lose. This way he became famous in Xeno universe. Lord Beerus, you have a very good plan. Haha, that's a nice day. Beerus whistled and looked up at the sky. The corner of Louis' mouth twitched slightly. The reason why he said Beerus had a good plan was because if he fought with other gods of destruction, he would be invincible. In this way, Beerus could taunt back harshly, saying that a master at the level of a god could not even beat a mortal. Beerus doesn't care about attracting hatred at all. After all, he is hated by all the gods of destruction, and he doesn't need to care if others hate him more. But Beerus is trying to drag him into this. Okay, little brat, I'm your master, just tell me whether you will help me or not. Beerus patted Louis' shoulder and said without blushing or panting. Help, can't I help? Louis gritted his teeth. Louis looked angry on the surface, but he was calm inside. As the saying goes, one rises and one withers, he and the seventh universe have been bound together for a long time. Besides, in Louis' eyes, Beerus and Whis are both teachers and friends. Beerus wanted to taunt back, and Louis would naturally help him. Louis' mouth curled up slightly. He was looking forward to fighting with other substitute gods of destruction. Sudden. Louis frowned and said, Lord Beerus, except for the 11th universe, what other universes have candidate gods of destruction? Whis finally spoke, laughing, ha ha ha, back when Lord Beerus accepted you as a candidate gods of destruction, the other gods of destruction followed suit. Louis covered his eyes. He finally realized how unpopular Beerus was, and that others had already been prepared, just waiting to ridicule him. Beerus. Beerus touched his head, feeling a little embarrassed. He didn't expect that he would have to ask his heir to help him regain his face. Well, Master Beerus, when are they coming to the 7th universe? 1 year later. A year later. Yeah, what's the matter? What's the matter? Beerus looked at Louis in confusion. Louis shook his head. Vegeta and Son Goku went to King Kai to learn Kaioken, and he will come back to pick them up in a year. Also a year later, the two men prepared to seek revenge on Frieza. Unexpectedly, the candidate gods of destruction from other universes would come to the 7th universe a year later. There is a bit of a time conflict. In the end, Louis didn't say much, and Beerus and Whis settled down on Earth. When Beerus and his companion arrived on Earth, they quickly discovered that Taisai was right. The Earth is a food paradise. Even any random street snack was a delicacy that the two of them had never eaten before. Beerus and Whis wondered why this planet wasn't discovered earlier. In addition to delicious food, Beerus and Whis soon discovered that there was a very special place on Earth. In the northern part of the Earth stands a stone tower that reaches into the clouds, and above the tower there is a mysterious heaven. The two went up to heaven once, but did not find anything wrong. I only know that the heaven and the stone tower are very old. In the end, Beerus and Whis had to let it go. Chapter 24. Beerus and his partner immersed themselves in the world of food, while Louis began to practice. This was his first time practicing since leaving the Gods of Destruction world, and he still focused on 3 aspects of his practice: power, dimensions, and rules. In terms of strength, his current strength is measured by combat power, and before his transformation, he had 1.5 billion combat power, and after transforming into a Super Saiyan he has 75 billion combat power. In the other dimension, he is at the level of King Kai. According to the rules, he can only condense destructive energy the size of his fist. It is extremely unrealistic to achieve breakthroughs in all 3 aspects within a year unless there is a system reward. The system did not issue any sign-in tasks, so Louis could only work hard on one aspect and strive to make a breakthrough in a year. As for where to work hard, Louis thought about it and felt that it would be better to work hard on the dimension. Here are a few reasons. First, in terms of strength, Louis has reached the bottleneck at this stage and it is difficult to improve further. Even if it can be improved further, it won't be much, unless it breaks through to Super Saiyan 2. In this way, the original strength can be increased 100 times, which means 150 billion combat power. But don't forget that Lewis has just broken through Super Saiyan 1 not long ago. It is unrealistic to want to make further breakthroughs. This is also the reason why Lewis did not choose to practice after coming out of the Gods of Destruction world, but stayed with Taisai. Second. In terms of breaking the rules, how big a destructive energy bomb he can condense depends on the strength of his own power. The size of the container determines how much water it can hold. The limit for Lewis to be able to condense a fist-sized destructive energy bomb is already his limit. It is simply impossible to condense a larger destructive energy bomb. Don't forget that the other candidates for Gods of Destruction who come with power will also break the rules. Even if Lewis could condense his destructive energy to a greater extent, he could not compare with others who had practiced the destructive rules for thousands of years. Third. The dimension is different from the previous two. Lewis' current dimension has reached the King of the Realm level. Another breakthrough will lead to the God level. The Divine level is the dimension in which the Gods of Destruction and Supreme Kai exist. Once Lewis breaks through to the Divine level, his power will be transformed into Divine power. It has been said before that the power of gods is different from the power of mortals. Under the same combat power, the power unleashed by the power of gods is more powerful. There is another very important benefit of breaking through to the Divine dimension, which is that your lifespan will be greatly increased. Of course, even if Lewis made a breakthrough in dimension, he would definitely not be able to defeat the other candidate Gods of Destruction. Lewis didn't think he could beat others at the moment, but others couldn't kill him either. The result was destined to be a draw. After weighing the three options, Lewis chose to focus on the dimension. But one thing you need to note is that dimensional cultivation is not just about having enough talent. It also requires a lot of time, and even opportunities and luck. So Lewis ascended to the heavens again. Heavenly Temple. The gods are watching the lower world as always. The god wiped the cold sweat off his face and said, "I didn't expect the real gods of destruction would come to earth." A ray of light flew over from the lower world, and the person who came was none other than Lewis. The god asked in confusion, "Mr. Candidate Gods of Destruction, is there something wrong with you?" Lewis smiled and said, "I came here to borrow your spiritual time house. I wonder if the gods can agree. Can you agree to it? If you don't agree, will you destroy the earth?" The god swallowed his saliva. Although he was very curious about why Lewis knew about the spirit time house, he nodded, "Of course, there is no problem." "Well, take me there." "Okay, please follow me." The god took Lewis into the temple and through the corridor. Along the way, the god explained to Lewis the precautions of the spirit time house. Lewis already knew what was going on in the spirit time room, but he still listened quietly. Arrived at the door of the spirit time house. The god said, "Candidate Gods of Destruction, please come out within 2 years, otherwise you will be trapped in there forever." Good. Lewis didn't tell the gods that, in fact, as long as the power is strong enough, he can still break through the space barrier and return to reality. Lewis walked into the spirit time room. Other universes at this time. "Rumschi, have you chosen your candidate? I picked it more than 10 years ago. What about you, Kampa? If you don't see Beerus as your brother, then you won't participate in this challenge." "Tisk, I wish I could mock that skinny rib every day." "That's good. We still have a year to let them practice and make sure nothing goes wrong." The 11 gods of destruction came together to plot a challenge against Lewis. On the other side, the serving angels also gathered together. "Vados, have you found out the origin of that sacred aura?" "Sister, I didn't find out." "What about you all?" "We didn't know either. We asked Whis, but he said he knew nothing. Maybe he really doesn't know. Well, let's take this opportunity to go to the 7th universe and check it out." Yes. Time passed, and a year went by. Zidu, inside Taisai's restaurant. "Lewis, come and eat this." Taisai forked a piece of meat to Lewis' mouth. Lewis smiled slightly, opened his mouth, and ate the piece of meat that was forked to his mouth. When Taisai saw that he had finished eating, she picked up a tissue and gently wiped his mouth. The other side of the dining table. "Whis, don't grab it, it's mine." "Master Beerus, mine, mine." Beerus and Whis were fighting over the last chicken leg on the table and were about to start a fight. "Master Beerus, I'm full. I'll go to King Kai and be back soon." Lewis said hello and left the hall with Tais. Seeing this, the two people in the restaurant stopped, and Beerus took the opportunity to snatch the chicken leg from Whis, chewing it while saying, "Whis, you didn't leave because you thought there was something wrong with this guy." A year ago, Louis went to that mysterious heaven for more than 10 days, and he was a little different when he came back. Whis thought thoughtfully, it seems that the dimension is a little different. Yes, I have the same feeling. I always feel that Louis will soon break through to the level of a god. Beerus took another bite of the chicken leg and shook his head, "I'm afraid I'm crazy. Louis has only been practicing for 16 years. How could he break through to the god level so quickly?" King Kai Star. Swish. Louis shows up here with Tai's instant transmission. Sudden. Two overwhelming forces came rushing towards them. Tai Sai's originally rosy face turned pale in an instant. "Don't be afraid." Louis hugged Tai's tightly, and suddenly a purple light appeared on his body. The destructive aura tightly enveloped the two of them, and the rolling air waves hit the destructive aura and suddenly disintegrated. "You scared me." Tai Sai patted her chest. 10x Kaioken. 10x Kaioken. With two loud shouts, the rolling air waves became violent again, and King Kai Star kept shaking, as if it would explode in the next second. You two guys, stop it right now." King Kai clung to the leaning tree, his pet gorilla and grasshopper clinging to his thighs. "Who are they? They are so strong." Tai Sai was protected, but still covered her mouth, stunned. "They are my people. I didn't expect they actually learned Kaioken." Louis hugged Tai's, and strong air waves hit them wildly in front of them, but in the end they couldn't break through the destructive aura. After a while, the two red lights dimmed, and Son Goku and Vegeta released their Kaioken status. King Kai and his two pets loosened their grip on the tree and crawled weakly to the ground. "It's Louis." Son Goku noticed Louis, and of course also noticed Tai's beside Louis. "Louis, who is she?" "She is my wife." Louis smiled slightly and pulled Tai's over. Tai Sai, who was standing next to him, felt very happy and looked at Louis tenderly. Louis squeezed her little hand and looked at Vegeta. "How's Kaioken?" Vegeta grinned and said, "Very strong, Frieza is dead now." "Oh." Louis sensed the aura of Vegeta and Son Goku. When Son Goku came to King Kai Star, his combat power was 80,000, and Vegeta's was slightly less than Son Goku, only 70,000. Now, according to Louis's perception, Son Goku's strength should be around 200,000 combat power. As for Vegeta, he is still a little less than Son Goku, with only about 170,000 combat power. "Haha, it seems like you guys are very confident in your revenge plan." "Humph, I'm going to kill Frieza myself." Vegeta gnashed his teeth. The image of the explosion of planet Vegeta was still vivid in his mind. Perhaps with his combat power of 170,000, he is still unable to defeat the Emperor of the Universe. But if he transforms into a giant ape, Frieza will definitely not be his opponent. At this time, meet the candidate gods of destruction. King Kai regained his strength and hurried over to salute. "Don't wait until the other party gets angry because of your lack of courtesy and then crushes his remaining planets." Louis nodded to King Kai, then looked at Son Goku and the others and said, "The 1-year time is up. Now that you have all learned Kaioken, let's go back to Earth." Son Goku hesitated to speak. "Kakarot, what's wrong with you? Why don't you ask us if we have learned another special move from King Kai?" Son Goku bared his teeth, kind of showing off. Snort. Vegeta on the side folded his arms and snorted coldly. "Is it true that you, Kakarot, learned it, but Vegeta didn't?" Louis laughed. "How boring." Vegeta snorted again. Son Goku put his arm around Vegeta's shoulders and smiled at Louis. "Haha, Louis, you're really smart." Vegeta's face darkened even more, and he finally spoke up, "What's so great about that? It's just a spirit bomb. It's not as powerful as Kaioken." The word jealousy was almost printed on his face. "Okay, didn't I tell you that not everyone can learn this move?" "Vegeta, you don't have to worry about it," Louis said. Yes, only people with a pure heart can learn this move." King Kai nodded quickly. At this moment, Vegeta's face was darker than the bottom of a pot. Doesn't this mean that he has impure thoughts? Finally, Louis took Tai's, a depressed Vegeta, and a happy Son Goku away from King Kai planet. Chapter 25. Back on Earth, Son Goku returned to Bun Mountain, while Vegeta lived in Bulma's house. Having just returned, the two had no plans to look for Frieza for revenge right away, so they decided to rest first. Inside the backyard, Taisai and Louis sat on the swing, lowered their heads, and said shyly, "Louis, can you please repeat what you said at King Kai Star?" Louis pretended not to understand and looked at her with a smirk. "What did I say? I kind of forgot." "You." Tais raised her head, puffed up like an angry little lion. She has beautiful eyes, especially those that are round and cute. She is obviously a big sister, but after being kept young forever by Shenron, she looks like a girl. It's really fatal. Louis' heartbeat quickened. Taisai grabbed Louis' hand, bit it lightly, and said angrily, "Hurry up and tell me, or I will bite you to death." Louis pursed his lips and rubbed her little head. "If you bite me to death, you will have no husband." "Louis, I'm so happy." Tais smiled sweetly, jumped directly to the ground, then jumped into his arms, hugging Louis like a tree. The girl in his arms was very soft, and her fresh body fragrance penetrated into his nose, and Louis felt a strange feeling in his heart. It is sweet happiness melting in the heart. He came to the Dragon Ball world, and he always wanted to punch Beerus and kick Xeno. Who would have thought that I would meet Tais? There are many beauties in Dragon Ball, such as Bulma, Shishi, number 18. But Taisai is beautiful in a different way. She is mature and intellectual, yet naughty and cute. Louis put his hands on Taisai's back and hugged her. He now has someone to care about. "I asked you to protect me before, but you deceived me." A faint voice suddenly came from Taisai in his arms. "What did I lie to you about? You deceived my heart." Tais raised her head, and her beautiful eyes were filled with Louis's shadow. Louis covered his chest and felt like he was hit by a sweet arrow feather. Holding her little face in his hands, he said, "Sister Taisai, how did you learn to tease people?" She had long golden hair draped behind her head, a fair and delicate face, and red lips that opened and closed slightly. "I'm not teasing you, and I'm not your sister. I am your wife." Taisai stuck out her tongue, looking cute and innocent. The breeze blew, but it couldn't take away the heat in Louis' body. His sister Tais is so cute. Louis held her little face and bit her red lips gently. Taisai's eyes widened. "He kissed me." Her mind went blank and she forgot to resist. When she came to her senses, she responded to him, and her bold move made her ears burn. After a while, the lips parted. "You." Taisai suddenly felt something pressing against her, her face flushed, and she pinched the corner of Louis's clothes with her fingers. "You." Sorry." Louis stuttered when he spoke, and the dignity of the substitute gods of destruction disappeared completely, making him just like a fool and a dullard. "Louis is ready to let Tais go." Puff. Taisai covered her little mouth and laughed, then hugged Louis tightly, still in the tree hug posture. "Just give it a thumbs up. He's my man anyway." Louis was held tightly by Tais, the stimulation was getting greater and greater, and the smell of hormones was getting stronger and stronger. The two looked at each other. The air became hot and dry. Louis lowered his head, Tais's mouth corners slightly raised, and she closed her eyes again. Sudden buzz. Dozens of colorful lights appeared in the sky, and a vast aura of the gods filled the entire earth. Mortals couldn't detect it, but Louis could sense it. So at the same time. Ding, task released, please sign in front of the angel gods of destruction, reward, God Dimension. God Dimension? Louis was stunned, then ecstatic. When he was still in the gods of destruction world, he had been practicing the dimension. After 4 years of training, he had made little progress in his dimensional training. After coming to Earth, he practiced for more than a year, plus more than 10 years in the spiritual time chamber, and he finally made a breakthrough. That is stepping into the divine dimension. But Louis always failed to make the final move. Now the system has actually released this task, which is really cool. Louis didn't kiss her, but held Taisai's little face and said gently, "Sister Taisai, they are here." "Who's coming?" Taisai opened her eyes and puffed out her mouth. "It turns out kissing is so comfortable. I almost kissed her again. How annoying. They are the candidate gods of destruction from other universes. They came to me. It's them. Humph, I'm so pd off." Taisai clenched her fists. She was really angry that she didn't get to kiss her little boy. "I can't stand it anymore." "Kiss first." Taisai raised her head and kissed him. Still not satisfied, "Put your tongue in." After a while. "All right." Louis scratched her little nose and said, "After I finish fighting them, I will come back to accompany Sister Taisai. Go, go. Finally, Louis left the backyard. The northern part of the earth. 11 colorful streams of light appeared here, and suddenly 33 figures appeared. Except for the 11 figures with divine halos floating above their heads, the other 22 figures all exuded a powerful aura. First universe gods of destruction in said, "Why is Beerus on this garbage planet?" The 10th universe gods of destruction Rumsshi taunted, "Sure enough, the 7th universe has begun to decline." Ha ha ha. The gods of destruction laughed. The 11 angels standing by had no expression on their faces, but their eyes were fixed on the tall tower in the forest in the north of the earth. As for the remaining 11 figures, they are all candidates for gods of destruction. At this time, 2 figures appeared here. Beerus said coldly, "He really came." Group 6 Universe Gods of Destruction Compa laughed, "Skinny chops, are you ready for a fight? Where's your heir?" After saying this, Compa pretended to look around. "Your heir? You're not afraid of us, are you? That's why you don't bring him here." "Ha ha ha, I think Beerus is scared too. Why doesn't he dare to bring your people here?" Quitella, the 4th Universe Gods of Destruction, laughed. "Ha ha ha. The gods of destruction are fearless. After all, if you let a little brat be the candidate gods of destruction, how powerful can he be after only practicing for a dozen years?" Beerus snorted coldly, "Laugh? I wonder if you can still laugh later." The 2nd Universe Gods of Destruction Hooray spoke up, "Everyone can brag. If you have the guts, send your heir out." "Stop talking nonsense, Beerus. We agreed to let our heirs spar with each other. Get your people out now." 11th Universe Gods of Destruction Vermit looked at Beerus teasingly. The group of gods of destruction candidates also smiled. They had received orders long ago that they must make the heir of the 7th universe look bad in this competition. At this time, there was a slight fluctuation in space, and a figure appeared next to Beerus. The person who came was none other than Louis. "Ding, you have successfully signed in front of the angel gods of destruction. Reward, God Dimension." Buzz. A divine aura suddenly burst out from Louis, and he finally took the finishing touch. The power of mortals is completely transformed into the power of gods. After breaking through to the God Dimension, Louis' lifespan became the same as Supreme Kai and gods of destruction. At this moment, the angel gods of destruction noticed Louis' breakthrough, and the scene instantly became boiling. What the hell? God's Dimension? Who is this guy? Why did he break through to the divine dimension? Could it be the candidate gods of destruction of the 7th universe? How is that possible? Beerus has only been recruiting candidates for the gods of destruction for a dozen years. It's impossible to train a little brat to the god dimension in just a dozen years. The gods of destruction stared at Louis in shock. Not to mention the other gods of destruction were shocked, even Beerus and Whis were equally stunned. Isn't this kid from King Kai's dimension? How did he break through in the blink of an eye? If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you are notified of future uploads. You can find the next parts in the playlist visible on the screen or on my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.